All right, we are live. Let me just make sure I got everything going here. All right, we are live there. All right, live on Facebook. I'll start the Instagram when we actually get going because that only runs for about an hour. Then we're going to get into it. All right, so just give me a minute here. Then we will get going. All right. Just give me 1 sec. Just getting everything up and running here. All right. What happened there? Okay, something wrong there. All right. All right. I'll play this one song. This was by the brother L Bones that was on the last Hip Hop in the Culture. I'm just going to play that while we're waiting for a minute, and you can check his music out. It's all available on SoundCloud. Okay. Hold on. Looks like it's not up there. What happened there? Hold on. Wait, something wrong. I'm not sure what happened. It's saying it was removed. Hold on 1 second. See if I can find it here.
As I step on the concrete, I watch my front, glancing over my left shoulder.
This is a different track. City of Sharks. Not sure why the other one was removed. But you can find his music on SoundCloud. I'll just let this one play and then we'll start.
To the words, pay attention to the rhymes, the signs. We living in different times. Back in the days, they used to solve them with blade by the task on a regular basis, and they won't be happy until they see you embrace it. It used to be about
somebody that are here.
it used to be about the colors, now it's all about turf. More to bless my soul in the race against time.
Start in about 2 minutes.
Live a life of crime, sublime and esoteric, yet in the forefront, the naked eye can't see what the trained eye confronts. Living in the battlefront, the tension can be tasted. The streets is a place where talent and wits can be wasted and tested. Hope that your resolve won't be bested, cause you can get shot and stabbed, knuckled down or arrested, and spend your final days doing life in the pen. Whatever you do, oh boy, just be in it to win. But don't be surprised when you meet your final end. There ain't no mystery to a life lived in sin, so just give it up, get it right, roll it up, get it tight, be the baddest gangster. It's your life, live it right. The city of sharks is where I choose to roam. The city where I lay my head and rock the microphone. I got no reason to lie. You best to open your eyes and realize all that glitters just ain't gold. It's time to break the mold of what you've been told. And ain't shit for free, man. The game is sold. Make one move wrong and your life could be gone. It's all zone of the T-Boo wrong. Shark Tank, I'm living in the Shark Tank. The Shark Tank, living in the day in and day out. The street games they play out. The politicians politicize and police they stay out. Raiding every dope house and trap on the map and make stacks. Sell dope and rap is the average dream, the average scheme, or so it seems. Monetary means made cold on the backs of a fiend. Triple beam schemes carried out, fold the dream and fold the team. Things just ain't what they seem. No time for breaks and no room for apologies for those who play the game with crystal methodology. Honest, the streets are calling, but probably ain't no stopping me. And PD operates a shoot first policy, addicted to criminology and all of its perks, until the the man shuts the slammer and you see what it's worth. No more putting in work when you take your last breath. Just another statistic when you're marked for death. And there ain't no justice, homie. It's just us living in deep waters, man. Who can you trust? Got me ready to bust, cause life is overrated when you constantly look at a society's most hated. The rich get richer and the poor don't get a fucking thing. Ain't no limit to problems to what my money bring. While the homeless and the broke all set up in camp. But that ain't a good look, so they move them under the freeway ramp. Being broke is a crime, so they lock them up to hide it. A rising crime rate ain't good for real estate, so they deny it. Plummet in the system, more people defy it. And they say this is a safe city, but I don't buy it. Give it up, get it right, roll it up, get it tight, roll it down on life, homie.
These are some of the artists again that we have on the Hip Hop and Culture.
Where I lay my head and rock the microphone. I got no reason to lie. You best to open your eyes and realize all that glitters just ain't gold. It's time to break the mold of what you've been told. It ain't shit for free, right? The game is sold. Make one move wrong and your life could be gone. It's on. Zone of the T-Boo wrong. Shark Tank, I'm living in the Shark Tank. The Shark Tank, I'm living in the Shark Tank.
That was City of Sharks by L Bones. You can get his music on SoundCloud. This is Set Typhoon, Cosmic Stroll. Play this last one.
Here comes the soul, getting ready to take us on this cosmic stroll. So it is written, so shall it be done. The indigenous woman and man is the only true.
All right, so we will start right after this. I'm just getting everybody a minute or two to get here.
1977, I fell past the heavens when the soul reached the lowest sphere of the zodiac. It traveled through Sagittarius, this constellation, because my attributes incarnated in the flesh, and I'm a dot in the middle of the circle connection between the entire zodiac. Hermetic scroll, they all is max. Universe is meant to run to come through it. That means it's the creative force of the universe that makes us
and brother Set Typhoon's music.
The way we formulate the pyramids well over 6,000 years
I believe that's on multiple platforms too.
I'm down here playing my role, match my movements with the cosmos. It'll be kind of odd till I was shell of a man who don't know he's God. They hit the bed with my passport, you sit and duck. I'm a big star. From the north to the growing, this plane's beyond the knowing. Gotta tap into it, go within, explore the law and correspondence, principle, universal application, and manifestation. Now I'm moving on like animation, for the law of vibration. I'm a soul, I have a spirit, both encased in this matter. Is it really about balance?
He too was one of the brothers we had on the show, and actually trying to bring him back for the next one.
The art of polarization, shut off your brain. You find yourself on a whole other plane in your meditation. If it's about liberation of your subconscious mind, and you will find you have fell into the physical now. I'm knowing it's probably the fifth time. I rhyme when I write, that means I write like I rhyme, like the law of rhythm. I ebb and flow with my fickle that flow. Not a rise to high tide, with a pendulum, when the tides get low. I keep a woman around my arm, her cycle is the same as a moon. Ain't no room for two. See, I affect the cause and chance. Is the name for a law, not recognized by my mind. It's great for the lesson, keep to manipulate the physical, the seven principles. I'm the masculine half of the physical. Yo, lo and behold, here comes the soul, getting ready to take us on this cosmic stroll. So it is written, so shall it be done. The indigenous woman and man is the only true begotten.
The quality of a man's thoughts are directly linked to the quality of his biochemistry. The quality of a man's thoughts is directly linked to the qualities of his biochemistry. His thoughts, if he is not observant, will fall victim to the dictates of his appetites that would have invaded his culture. A man's appetites will dictate his thinking, that's it. And his thinking will therefore then dictate his actions. Thus, it is through the path that leads to the realm of thought, and at the portal of thought, observing the realm without judgment, that a man attains a genuine perception of his humankind. Now, there are those who claim that we should meditate upon ourselves as sexless balls of light.
All right. Let me just fix this, and then we're going to go ahead and get started.
Yo, lo and behold.
All right, turn it off. Give me 1 sec. Just restarting this. sec. Having a little technical difficulty with this. All right, here we go. I got it. Just trying to go update the Facebook. Oh man, I tell you. Okay, here we go. Nope, it didn't work. Okay, there we go. Right. Okay. I think we are good. All right. We got it. Okay. Let me get this set up here and then we'll get going. Sorry about that. We had a little difficulty. There we go. All right. Let me just make sure we got that running right. All right, bear with me. I just need to check one more thing, then we're going to go ahead and start. All right, hold on 1 second. Okay. Let's see something real quick just to make sure we're good. All right. We are good. All right. Let me get started here. I apologize for that. All right, little technical difficulty. So just a couple quick announcements. I know, just in case some people are wondering what happened past Saturday, we were trying to reschedule the Hip Hop and Occult show, which we were originally supposed to do that Friday. Myself and Brother Taza, we were trying to live stream it. We were having issues getting the live stream to work, so we were not able to do it. I know some people had emailed me and wanted to know, did something happen? Did we actually do the show? No, we did not. We were not able to do it because we could not live stream it. Okay, so we're going to reschedule that show in its original date and format that the Hip Hop and Occult show follows, which is the first Friday of every month. So I believe that is October 2nd. Yeah, Friday, October 2nd, 8 p.m. We will do the same. We're going to do the same exact show that we were originally going to do, which is the greatest lyricists of all time. Okay. Well, obviously, we're not going to be able to cover everybody, but hold on 1 second. We will try to tap into and do the, in our opinion, the best lyricist of all time. So no, that show did not happen. We will, again, go ahead and do that show on the 2nd of October, okay? And that was the issue. It was just a live streaming issue. So that show will be rescheduled. Also, if you are, well, two things. The class on October 3rd, let me put that out there before I forget. The class on October 3rd, which is Saturday, and that class will be from 3 to 6:30 p.m. And we will be discussing and talking about the path of the ancient Egyptian vampire. We'll be going into focusing more on the spiritual side, not into a lot of the modern day aspects of vampirism, how it's practiced, and that's fine if that's a path that you utilize. But we're going to be talking about more energy techniques, energy, absorption, working with the subtle body, the chakras, astral traveling. As I said before, it is a path that is extremely and highly mental path. It takes a lot of mental determination and willpower to successfully work that path. And those are the things that we will be touching on. Okay. Hold on one second. Anyway, yeah, those will be the things that we will be touching on. All right. That class, again, you can sign up for that class. That class is open to anybody that would like to participate. It is not exclusively a Patreon event. I know some of the Patreon members get confused. Anybody can sign up and register for that class. And that class will be $55. You can pay via PayPal. All the information is right. Description box, the email is posted on Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram. You just use the canoom19@gmail.com email. And in the notes, when you make your payment, please include your name and your email address so the link goes to the right email. Okay. So that's on Saturday, October 3rd. For those that are Patreon members, tomorrow, we do have a class tomorrow. The 4 anti-worlds and non-existence. That's for Patreon members only. You can go to patreon.com/Beniti and check out the Patreon page if you haven't. As I said before, there's a tier level, a membership level for anybody on there. I'm sure you can find one tier that suits your needs. There's also a mentorship program on there, as I said before, and I recently posted a video about that. And again, that's exclusively for people who are serious and want to actually put work in, advance on the path, not for me to give you my influence and to see the occult, left-hand path and magic through my eyes, but help you develop your own path, your own understanding. It is work, okay? You must be consistent. As I've said many times before, and I will keep repeating it over and over. It's don't waste your time and don't waste my time. That's just going to be straight to the point. If you feel you can't commit to it, because it is a commitment as far as time, effort, energy. It's the old adage, what you put in, that's what you get out. It's the only way I can put it. What you get in, that's what you get out. Okay. So that's coming up tomorrow. And again, if you haven't, seen it, the Patreon page, patreon.com/Beniti. Also, got several emails this week about the Journey to Black Adept conference. It looks like we're going to more than likely do that virtually. Reason for is, even though we have just, I believe we begin Monday, phase 2 opening, there's still a lot of restrictions as far as gatherings, and I just can't take the chance of people congregating. People see us congregating in our place, and I just don't need any legal issues and what they are doing here if you're violating. I mean, everything has pretty much been open here in South Florida, restaurants, retail, obviously with, capacity limitation, obviously wearing masks, but we've never really shut anything down, contrary to what you might have heard on the news in the last few months, even though we had a serious uptick in cases, which has now pretty much gone down and we've gotten it under control. But long story short, not to stay on it too long, it's just due to the fact I just don't think we'll be able to meet the required guidelines. And I don't want people traveling here and we have too many people here and we get shut down. Then we got people that have traveled here, spent money. It is what it is. So putting together a virtual presentation of it where you'll be able to sign up if anybody would like to do a presentation, since we'll be doing it through the Zoom platform. It will be a 2-day event. We'll have lectures like we did the last 2 years, presentations. Those that sign up and pay will be able to view and really virtually participate in the rituals if you decide to. So you'll be able to sign up and have full participation. So if anybody's interested in doing a presentation, that's the last week in October, shoot me an email. Let me know what it is you want to present. whatever occult left-hand path topic you want to present. Space, I think, is limited about 8 or 9 presenters, which we did last year. So we'll keep those spaces open until we run out. First come, first served basis, as long as what you're doing is within the guidelines and the criteria of what we kind of do here. All right, so shoot me an email on that. More information to come on that in the next few days or within the next week. All right. If you're interested in a reading or a consultation, shoot me an email, days and times you're available, time zone you live in, and I will get back to you. The type of readings, again, that I do, or telepathic readings. There's several different kinds. Contact me. I'll let you know. You could do a reading with Santa Muerte, the Holy Death, and Spirits of the Dead, or you could do a shadow reading. But I want to make it clear. Shadow reading, as I've said, I'll keep repeating it. It is a very intense reading. It's very personal. You're not forced to discuss what comes up in that. Highly recommend it. If you want to uncover specific aspects of your shadow or hidden self that you need to work on, that's the reading. But I want to be clear. The reading specifically is intended to focus on that aspect. All right. So any of those readings, shoot me an email. I'll send you the information. Just need to know the days and times you're available, time zone, and all that good shit. Also, if you are interested in a spiritual consultation, that's basically a free-for-all. Whatever you want to talk about, whatever you want to discuss. Could be guidance on your path, focus on a specific topic. Whatever it is, you pretty much control the flow of how that goes. All right. So shoot me an email. Last thing, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button. Also, when you hit the notification button, make sure, and if you want to get updates as far as anything new posting or live like this, you must also hit the bell and hit all notifications. If you don't get the live notifications. Again, people will say I don't get live notifications. That's why. All right, so subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. The more likes the video gets, the more places it expands out on the platform. All right, having said that, got that out of the way. Let's get into it. I wanted to do this topic because this recently came up a few days in a discussion, actually, with somebody in the mentorship program. So I figured let's just talk about it. There's a lot of perspectives on the Tiamat story, the Tiamat mythology. Like anything else, whether we're looking at the ancient Egyptian Natiru, whether we're looking at the demons from different pantheons and grimoires, some have a more literal approach in understanding this, which you got to be careful, because if you take everything literal, you're going to get jammed up. You're going to get messed up. It's going to throw you off. It's going to get you confused. And then it becomes very religious, because then we're back to external aspects of understanding things. And that's what we don't want to do. There's an internal approach to this, which is more of the approach of how we utilize it on this path. You've got to be able to decipher between the literal and allegorical aspects of these grimoires. If you don't, you tend to lean to one side more than the other. Over the years, and again, in the 20 plus years, close to 30 years doing this, I've seen both aspects. I've seen both spectrums. I've seen some people who have a very literal approach to ancient Babylonian magic or Mesopotamia and the deities and the grimoires that proceed from it. And then I've seen others have a more spiritual approach. We need to kind of find that fine line in between, all right, in order to connect with these spirits and work with these energies. So I want to kind of talk about the origin, the reason why I titled the video that. What does this represent to us on this path? And how do we connect with, work with Tiamat, work with, the primordial chaos, or the energy that Tiamat represents, all right? Well, there's 2 books I want to refer you to. This was a book I got a long time ago. When I say a long time ago, I'm going back to the early 90s. I'm sure it's still available. Yes, this was written in 92, and I think I got this book either in 93 or 94. I would suggest this is Gods, Demons, and Symbols of Ancient Mesopotamia, an illustrated dictionary. It's by Jeremy Black and Anthony Green. All right, book came out in the early 90s, 92. It's a good, it almost goes in line in the same format of this book. That's why I I told you guys about this book several times, A Dictionary of Egyptian Gods and Goddesses by George Hart. It kind of uses the same format. It's an A to Z to get yourself familiar with the deities and what they represent. So I want to use two things. I want to use that, and I'm going to use a section from the Grimoire of Tiamat by Asenath Mason. In the beginning, she gives a good breakdown and understanding of the mythology of Tiamat and how we ought to look at this and apply this to our spiritual path and ritualistic work, okay? But I find it interesting in Jeremy Black and Anthony Green's book, when you go to Tiamat, I want to start there. Their definition. Now, they come more from an approach. And the reason why this is important when you study, you can get fucked up if you just listen to one person's perspective on this. See, that's what tends to happen with some people. They either read one book or they get so captivated by one author or one teacher. You shouldn't do that with anything on this path, okay? You should be exploring different options, getting different understandings so you can draw the conclusion to your own personal understanding of what this is about. Because if you just take one person's word for granted, don't even take my word for granted, okay? I'm telling you, I've always encouraged you from day one to do further research. All I'm doing is putting information out, okay? All I'm doing is putting it out to inspire you, to motivate you so you can find your own niche. Again, as I said many times before over the years, I'm not doing this. I couldn't give two shits if you love or like me. That's personal. I appreciate it if you like me, great. If you don't, I really couldn't give a shit. I'm not here for that. I'm not on YouTube like some of these other people because they want to become YouTube stars. That's not why I'm here. This is why I turn the comments off of my channel. I'm not interested in all that, okay? People have, I've gotten so many emails over the years. Why do you turn the comments off your channel? You should leave them on so we can comment. I would love to, but I see the bullshit that goes on other people's channels. It's a platform for knuckleheads to just come in and disrupt what the information was intended for. Not so much to me, because I can hold my weight, hold my own. I'm not worried about that. I'm just saying I've seen other people on other platforms start arguing amongst each other. And to me, that takes away from the essence of the information that's being put out. So I'm not here for that. I'm not here to get into a back and forth fuckery, all right? It's information. So whatever I talk about here, you should further do research. You shouldn't just take everything I'm saying for face value. Neither should you anybody else. So I've seen over the years where people will, for an example, back in the day, a lot of people took, and he has great books, don't get me wrong, Zachariah Stitchin, all right? He's another author you can look for if you're trying to get an understanding of the ancient Mesopotamian or Sumerian culture. He's probably one of the most used authors on the topic from all walks of life. I don't care if you are Black, Latino, white, Asian, anybody that has had an interest in studying ancient Sumeria or ancient Mesopotamian culture, I'm sure is very familiar with Zachariah Stitchin. And he's put out a bunch of books on the topic. I read a lot of his books back in the early 90s. So it just depends. I mean, you can find it. It's there. Even though you'll find it scattered. I know Dr. Ben has talked about it scattered throughout a lot of his lectures and books. Ivan Van Sertima, even though he dealt more with the ancient Moors, but he has alluded to it in some of his presentations and lectures, etc. But the point being is you should expand, you should look from all sides of the spectrum, all right? All right. But I found it interesting in this book because in the Gods, Demons, and Symbols of Ancient Mesopotamia, they take more of a symbolic, metaphorical approach. And I want to read that because what does this really mean? And as I go through this short explanation, let's talk about it. I want to start with this because I thought this was a good starting point and I haven't pulled this book out and shit. I got to be honest with you. The last time I probably even opened this book was probably over 20 years ago, literally. This has been sitting on the shelf for a good minute. All right, this is in their book, they describe Tiamat in the unique version of the creation of the gods preserved in the Babylonian epic of creation. After the separation of heaven and earth, the only entities in existence were Apsu,
and Tiamat, right? This is according to when you're reading any of the Sumerian tablets, the Gilgamesh epics, the Atrahasis, which talks about the creation stories. This is what it's talking about, but we're going to go a little bit further than that. Apsu personified the fresh subterranean waters and Tiamat, the salt waters. Now pay attention to the symbol. You have the fresh water, which represents the male, and the salt water. And in life, there's the salt, right? The salt represents Tiamat, the mother. Pay in mind, because there's a lot of symbolicism when you're reading this that needs to be pointed out, because we work with symbols. We work with what a lot of these metaphors connect with in our ritualistic work. So we have fresh water and we have the salt water, one representation of the male, the other the female. We know salt gives it life, right? We know everything proceeded from the womb of Tiamat as we go down further. So keep that in mind when we're reading this. Apsu and Tiamat were envisioned as a male-female pair, although it is said that their waters mingled together, right? Now we also have to go and understand the chaotic waters of Nun in the ancient Egyptian story, because there's a connection here. When we look at two aspects, okay, or two symbolisms of what this means. We know in the story of the chaotic waters of Nun, right, where all chaos has its point of origin according to the story or the mythology, right? We know this represents the ejaculation of the sperm into the female. As those sperms race for life, only some survive, right? This is the chaotic waters of Nun. When it's talking about here, these waters merging, we're talking again. This is talking about a sex act, the merging of male and female fluids, right? We have to take this all into account, because we know we'll get down later into the slaying of Tiamat and what that represents. We know there was a birth from this, not killing, but this slaying. But let's continue. All right. They engendered a line of gods, including Anu, Anu's son E, or Enki, and apparently other deities whose activities so disturbed Apsu that he planned to exterminate them, despite Tiamat's protest. When E slew Apsu, Tiamat determined to be avenged and created 11 monsters, right? So these were the monsters or demons, they say in the story, that she gave birth to, right? This is important to understand. But let's continue. I just want to finish with this section. The 11 monsters with as her champion the god Kingu, described as her lover. Eventually, after a heroic contest, Marduk, champion of the younger gods, in the Assyrian version of his name, is substituted with that of Ashur. He defeated the monsters in Kingu and destroyed Tiamat by splitting her skull with his mace while standing on her lower parts. Okay, let's continue though. He broke her in two like a dried fish, using one half to the roof of the heavens. This is all symbolic now. Half of the roof to the heavens and the other to the surface of the earth. So we're talking about creation here, right? And from this creation, watch what emerges, right? All right. He broke her in two like a dried fish, and one half to the roof of the heavens, the other to the surface of the earth. Her breast formed the mountains. Tigris and Euphrates flowed from her eyes. Again, this is symbolic. Her spittle formed the clouds, while in some respects, Tiamat, like other deities, is described in anthropomorphic forms. It is difficult to form a precise picture of how the author of the epic envisioned her. In other passages, it seems to be implied that the salt sea waters were inside of her, which represented, again, the mother or the primordial womb that all things emerged. So their explanation of it, they're coming from the creation epic or the creation story in ancient Mesopotamia, and see the symbolicism. What the breasts representing the mountains, the waters emerging from the eyes, etc. We can't look at this literally because you really can't factually explain that. We can look at it and how this applies when we look at the divine male or divine feminine principle, right? The slaying or the splitting in two, right? As it says, she gave birth to the 11 monsters or the primordial demons. This really is a representation
of what resides within us and what we will have to deal with and battle as we go through life. We're going to deal with, and again, I want to make this clear. We're not talking about things that we should be afraid of or fear or monsters in that sense. We remember when we say in the word they use, demon, D-E-M-O-N, comes from the word D-A-E-M-O-N, daemon, right? Or agathodaemon you see in Hermeticism, which just means the higher self or the intelligent self, right? We talk about this all the time when we build on demonic integration or demonic work or connecting with your personal daemon. This is what this is talking about. This is talking about uncovering all aspects of yourself, including the hidden. And so what this is describing is what takes place in the subconscious. We could call it working the clit path, working the void, working the abyss, because that's where one goes to tap in to the inner aspects of their subconscious mind to get this understanding. It's talking about the internal things that take place and reside within us, right? It's talking about the creation story, right? We talk about the subjective and the objective realm. When we talk about the darkness or her being the womb or the canal to the birth of this chaos and demons, we're talking about when we read stories in whatever religions, cultures, philosophies, dogmas, we're talking about before what we know as territory creation or earthly creation. We're talking about things that transpired before what we would label as physical creation or existence. That takes a lot to kind of comprehend and discipline yourself in your study, because it's not something that you could really define within a certain timeline. That's why we connect it to primordial chaos. It's not something you can put within certain parameters to help you gauge as far as a beginning and an end. That's where you get messed up. It's not something a text is going to verify for you, because it's something that you must come to the realization and conclusion with, okay? So the approach. So I want to switch now. So that's one understanding. That's coming from an allegorical aspect of the creation, origin of Tiamat. And again, that was from God's Demon Symbols of Ancient Mesopotamia by Jeremy Black and Anthony Green. So I want to go a little bit more on an internal level, and this is why I chose the Grimoire Tiamat by Asenath Mason, because now as occultist, left-hand path practitioners, in my opinion, this is a more spiritual way to work with it. And this is probably the way I connect with it outside of the mythology, but that's a good explanation of the mythology. You're going to lose the battle because let me explain something. I have many conversations with people over years who are so wrapped in the Sumerian culture, try to really pass that as 100% fact. And really they can't, because when you start asking for timelines, points of origin, you get kind of fucked up. You're setting yourself up for failure. I've ran into them all. Trust me when I tell you. There's people that will literally debate, fuss and fight and argue, and they'll say, yeah, on this tablet, which was this, and through carbon and fossil data. I get all that. But fact of the matter is there's a lot of inaccuracies to that. Nobody can sit there and 100% say that a lot of these stories and mythologies and these grimoires are 100% true. Because as we know, we've got a version of it as it's got passed down through time. It's been influenced by many different cultures, okay? We do know that these tablets and these stories obviously predate the biblical creation stories, and I've talked about that many times over the years. So that is an undisputed fact. And we do see the similarities of how they grafted from these stories, especially when you're reading your Bible, right? We know they basically took that creation story from the Atrahasis. And how do we know that? All you got to do is study your biblical history, and you find out when what we know as the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, were put together. That didn't happen until the so-called biblical Jews came out of captivity in Babylon and came back into Jerusalem during the time of Ezra to rebuild Solomon's temple. This is when they started compiling what we know as the Bible, or the first 5 books of the Bible called the Torah. And because of their influence in ancient Babylon, and as I said before, this is where they got the 6-pointed star from, because you find the 6-pointed star inside those Babylonian temples before it was even familiarized or used in what we know as modern day Judaism. That's a fact. You can go look that up. Okay. So we know they were influenced by that, regardless if a religious person disagrees with it. It's irrelevant. Okay. The historical data validates that. That's something recent that can be confirmed. Okay. So that when you're trying to line up certain information, that's one aspect, but it's hard to put a point of origin. But we're going to touch on that because in the Grimoire of Tiamat, Asenath Mason goes in depth in connecting it to the the Enuma Elish. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to start with on page 3. So we'll go a little bit further. She talks about her as the first mother, which I thought was right on point. She gets into, which I'm not going to go through all this, the dragon slaying myth. I'll go a little bit through that, the primal chaos, right? And its connection to Leviathan. And then further on, it talks about the battle of light and darkness, right? Now, this is talking about us now, right? The battle of light and darkness really is the science of obtaining inner harmony. We're all striving to obtain. I don't like to use balance because balance is when things are stagnated, right? Balance is when things are at a standstill. That's more a state of stasis because things never rest, right? We know this, understanding the 7 hermetic principles of Tahuti. Nothing ever rests. All things are vibrating at frequencies, whether it's a low frequency or a high. Nothing ever rests. All things continue to move. We try to seek that rhythm or that harmony in line with that concept. So I'd rather use that word because when we obtain the right formula of harmony of light and darkness, light and chaotic or dark energy, this is when we are well-rounded practicing magician or adept, okay? So the battle of light and darkness is something we deal with every day on an internal level from, again, as I said before, from the moment you get up out of bed, you're always exercising your will. And there's always a battle from the simple things of what am I going to wear today? What clothes am I going to put on? To what am I going to eat this morning? To more complicated decisions as your day goes on, whether it's business decisions, personal or life decisions. There's always an internal war going on within. And it starts there, right? Willpower isn't free. Contrary to what spiritual systems, we don't have free will in the sense we have the ability to make our own choices, but nothing is free, okay? Because basically the choices you make, right, cause and effect, which is basically all karma is, removing all the spooky shit where people turn it into some spooky ass, something's gonna come back around and get you. No, it's as simple as cause and effect. What? By the decisions and the choices you make. That's it. So you're shaping out. This is what this battle of light and darkness is referring to. You are shaping, creating, building, and destroying simultaneously based on the choices and the decisions you make. This is what this is referring to. Okay. And we have to look at this internally first, because remember, this is an inward journey out, not an outward journey in. When you have an aesthetic approach and you're looking out there for something, and then you're going out there trying to work your way in, this is where you can get fooled, misled, thrown off the path, spoon-fed bullshit information. Because if we believe based on our personal understanding, not faith and belief of things not confirmed or seen, but our personal understanding, right, that we are a god or a goddess, right? And that simply means to be responsible, and to be responsible for your spiritual sovereignty, that you don't put your spirituality, your very soul's essence, in the hands of another. You take full control over that, and you don't blame anybody for your faults. You don't blame anybody for your mistakes. You take responsibility for the good things that happen, quote unquote, and the bad things. Long story short, you become responsible. That's all that means. Because people hear that term that may not be on this path, and they get all fucking spooky and religious. Oh, how can you say you're a god or a goddess? How could somebody say that? You're not the Almighty God. No, not the Almighty God in the term of your religious definition of it. That's a fictitious mythological God that doesn't even exist. I'm not talking about the fairy tale story God. We're not talking about that. We're talking about one who has now decided to take the path of being responsible for their actions, for what they do. So this is why when things manifest, however we describe them, good or bad, we take responsibility for it. And that's it. We embrace it. And that's what this is about, uncovering the shadow side. So let's go into the Enuma Elish. I'm going to go through a little bit of this. The story of Tiamat and her 11 monsters derives from this is where we left off in there, and this is why I figured we pick up here in the Grimoire of Tiamat. The Babylonian creation epic, the Enuma Elish, named after its opening words, when in the height, also known as the 7 tablets of creation. This epic is one of the central works in the Babylonian mythology and one of the oldest creation legends in the world, right? Predates the Bible, predates the Genesis story, because the Genesis story was actually grafted from the Enuma Elish. This is where you get the 7 days of creation. Go read it. You'll see the similarities, right? You see the flood story in the story of Utnapishtim, which is almost the identical story of who they call Noah in the Bible. So again, we see the influence. All you got to do is study your history to find out where that influence came from. So this is on point, right? The myth exists in several versions of the Babylonian and Assyria, the most known being the one found in Nineveh in the library of King Ashur-bani-pal, which dates to the 7th century BC. The legend itself, however, is far older, and it's estimated to be dated back as far as the 18th century BCE, the time of prominent status of the god Marduk, the leading deity of the Babylonian pantheon, who also occupies the central position in the story. So this is what I was saying earlier. You will have people that will have something traced back to a specific time point, but then there's further information to suggest it goes even further than that, to the point where you really can't put a time frame on it. Now, here's the thing that I've always said, and I remember back in the day, I used to be one of those people that would get caught up in the semantics of shit, the battling back and forth. What's the oldest? What was first? And this was this, and this, and then it's a back and forth fucking. But here's the bottom line: at the end of the day, who gives a fuck if it ain't doing nothing for you and it ain't producing any results? See, that's where we're at on this path now. We're trying to fuck with stuff that we're going to get results through our ritualistic work. I'm not really interested anymore. I gave that shit up years ago. I don't care about the first, the last, the beginning, and the end. What was this? Who was that before? Because it's a back and forth debate of fuckery. All I'm saying is it putting money in your pocket? Is it getting you paid? Is it making your life better? Are you growing spiritually? Having known all that, you see all these platforms, people arguing, fighting, and debating. At the end of the day, what is it really doing but separating more people? They're arguing and fighting. Who was first? The ancient Egyptians, the ancient Hebrews. Who gives a fuck? I know I don't. Reason why I don't, because I know the work I'm doing spiritually is producing results. It's transforming and changing my life. So I don't need none of that shit no more. I found out that a lot of that was a distraction, and I was guilty years ago of being involved in all that shit. I don't bother with it now, but don't get it twisted. If you get stupid, can of whip ass will be pulled out if you get ignorant with misinformation. Because as you know, if you want to talk Bible, we'll talk Bible. You want to talk Quran, we'll talk Quran. You want to talk this, we'll talk whatever. But at the end of the day, if it's not doing anything productive, what's the point? Okay? We're interested in this day and time with everything that's going on in this world. We see the world changing. We see things transforming. Probably everything that's going on now, whether it's politics, social injustice, whether we're dealing with a pandemic, we see the world is shifting and going to a whole nother phase or level. We need to be concerned about that. And you need to be concerned is where are you and what's your role and place in the scheme of things? If you still that fool that's just sitting back, bitching, moaning, and complaining and wanting to fuss and bitch and argue, then you one of the root causes of what's going on. Okay? What are you doing that's productive? First and foremost for yourself, because it starts for self. As I said before, if you go back to videos in March when this pandemic first popped off, I said to people day one, this is an internal time to really go within and find your place in the scheme of things. And I know this period has helped me see a lot of things on a personal and internal level. Okay? This is a great transformational time and change that we are in right now. We've always talked about years going back, there's a great change coming. There's a great event. Well, it's here. It's happening. It's not it's coming. It's not it's on the horizon. It's not it's going to come a couple years from now. We're in the midst of it. We're in a life-changing situation right now. That's where we are at. Don't fool yourself. And it's a mental battle first and foremost. Because now the other thing, the agenda that they keep pushing on the news is, oh, depression and suicide. This pandemic, the suicide rate has gone up. Depression has gone up. So now there's an intent to start fucking and getting inside your head. That's where they start, right? But you need to get inside of your head and understand the real you so you can transition along with this change. This path helps that. Tiamat and uncovering what this involves and entails is a deep internal spiritual look at yourself. And it's not always a pleasant one. It can be very painful. It could be very intense. And it's not an energy or a path, again, to take lightly in the sense of what you're tapping into, all right? But let's continue. We'll get back to that. All right, so we see this could go back further than that. The Enuma Elish was first recovered by Henry Layard in 1849 in Nineveh and published by George Smith in the 1870s as the Chaldean account of Genesis. Notice how they say the Chaldean account of Genesis. Who was Abraham? They say in the Bible. He was a Chaldean from the land of Ur. That's not a coincidence, right? They had to do that stuff because, remember, they had to connect some of the biblical characters to some of these ancient texts. So you would think there was some authenticity there. I said many years ago, if you take Egypt and ancient Babylonian out of the Bible, you really can't prove anything. It's mythology as it is, but you really take that out, you really don't have anything. I said many times before, there's nowhere on record, anywhere, and I've heard people debate this shit for years. There's nowhere on any Egyptian records of any people called Israelites being in bondage in ancient Egypt for 400 plus years. It's not there. You cannot produce one record. Yes, you can produce records of people called the Hyksos who came into Egypt, mixed in and invaded and spent 400 plus years in it. And that story is very eerie, similar to the format of the Israelite Bible. That you can make a connection with, but you can't find any record in Egypt of any people called Israelites. It doesn't exist. It's funny how the character Thutmose is very similar to the character Musa or Moshe or Moses. Some say Thutmose and Moshe are the same people because the stories are similar, okay? But you can't find any character Moses on any records in ancient Egypt as they describe in the Bible. So where do these stories come from? Okay, religious people don't want to address that. It's a fact. Show me. The Egyptians were meticulous in keeping their records. You would have thought if there was people there for 400 plus years under that name, it would be on record somewhere. That's just basic common sense. Come on. I mean, do we even really need to discuss that? But to this day, there's still people fighting over that. The Black Hebrew Israelites got oh man, forget it. The list goes on and on. There's still people debating and fighting over that when if we just use common sense, it's a basic understanding, okay? All right, let's continue with this. It consists of about 1,000 lines on 7 clay tablets. The 5th tablet is particularly damaged and its content has never been recovered in full. The most important, however, is the text of the 4th tablet, which was published in 1887 by E. Wallace Bulge and translated by A. Saichi. The central theme of the myth is the elevation of Marduk above all other Babylonian gods and his creation of the world and mankind from the primordial darkness and chaos which he clothes within the frames of a structured order. Therefore, the whole story presented in the Enuma Elish is, in fact, a praise of Marduk, the creator of heaven and earth and the Lord of the world, right? From the account of the Akkadian rituals described in the Rituals Akkadians by F. Thoreau Dangan in 1921, we learn that the epic was recited in Babylonia or Babylon during celebrations of the New Year. On the 2nd day of the festival, a priest of Marduk recited a hymn about the victory of the god over Tiamat and her allies, right? I'm going to skip down because for time's sake, I'm not going to have time to go through all this. I just want to touch on some key points. What is the legend? So I'm going to skip down. According to the legend, in the beginning, there was nothing but the world of primordial waters swirling in chaos. Keep that in mind now. Undifferentiated and infinite. So there's no time frame on this, right? This is not talking about territory or earthly creation. Remember, when you're reading a lot of these religious dogmas in these texts, it's talking about a territory or earthly creation. This is going prior to that, right? This is talking about in a state of darkness. And the Bible does actually confirm it in the first chapter, first verse. Why? Because it says in the beginning, God said, let there be light, which is confirmation he was what? In a state of darkness. Religious people don't ever want to address that. So darkness obviously can't be a bad thing. It's not what it's presented to be. Because in that darkness, in that silence, in that chaotic, watery abyss, what we're calling, misinterpreted as peace, in the illusion of light, is actually not what it is. That is the state of peace. Think how you become aware if you've ever been in a dark room. Think about when you were a child and you were in a dark room, whether you were, whatever you were doing, playing around, hide and seek or whatever, just horsing around, or you was just in a dark room. Think how you had, all your instincts had to kick in till your vision adjusted. You started to see with a different eye, this eye. Consciousness kicked in on a different level. You became very aware of your surroundings, your senses. You were in a true state of existence or prime existence where you were functioning at the fullest capacity. That happens in the darkness, not the light. This is why I said many times before, in a lot of initiatic orders like Masonry, they go through their degrees blindfolded in darkness. There's a reason for that. Because you have to, in order for one to obtain real intellect or knowledge or light, one must go into the darkness to obtain that light. That's the ultimate journey of Tiamat. You will not understand the real you if you do not go into that darkness to do the work of the light. Okay? That's what this is talking about. That's what this represents to us as occultists and practitioners on this path, right? When I go back and reflect on my Masonic degrees that I went through years ago, as I said before, I now have a different perspective on it, knowing what I know that I didn't know as a young man in my early 20s going through the Masonic Lodge. I was going through it in a different mindset, more from a Hebrew mystical mindset, the whole being enamored with the whole Solomon's temple thing, right? It's deeper than that, because the temple you really building when you go through the Masonic Lodge is you, the real you, the inner you, because as you walk into the lodge, you see two ashlas, right? One on the left, one on the right. There's a rough ashlar, which represents you entering the lodge. You're not perfected. You have rough edges, things you need to fix about yourself. But your goal is to become the smooth ashlar that you see on the other side. That's a self-perfected being. So in essence, the temple that you are working on in a Masonic lodge is yourself. You represent the temple. Regardless if they use the metaphors and connecting it to the building and the workings of Solomon's temple. So there's a connection there. I'm using that to show you this is the same thing we need to do with this, so we have a correct understanding of it. Because if we look at a lot of this stuff on a literal level, which some do, unfortunately, we can get a little bit confused, okay? All right, so let's continue on. Undifferentiated and infinite, then the waters divided into sweet fresh waters of Apsu. We just talked about this in the other book, and salty waters of Tiamat. Two primeval gods traditionally depicted as the male and the female, the first divine couple and the parents to all gods and all life. Apart from them, there was also a mysterious entity. Notice it says mysterious entity, right? Named Mumu, which took the form of the mist floating above the waters and was sometimes referred to as the vizier of Apsu. The union of the primordial couple gave birth to other deities, Lachmu and Lachamu, who in turn were parents of Anshar and Kishar. Now, these were deities that were synonymous with the planets in the galaxy. Watch this. Identified with the heaven and the earth, these had a son Anu, who fathered Nundamud, the greatest of the gods, The younger gods were very loud and disturbed the sleep of Apsu, distracting him from his rest. Upon the advice of Mumu, his vizier, he decided to kill them. But Tiamat strongly opposed the plan. In the order to prevent the murder, she warned Nunamud to put a spell on Apsu and killed him, creating his abode on the remains of the slain father. Now, again, now it's getting into some of the stories, King of the Tablet of Destinies. But let's skip down again, because, again, for time's sake. Let's talk about now, let's get to Tiamat, all right? Enraged by the noise, they persuaded Tiamat that she should seek revenge for the death of her husband, because remember, her husband, according to the mythology, was killed in the story that we just mentioned. Upon their advice, she took another consort, the god Kingu, and gave him command over her new army, the 11 terrible monsters. Now, they say Kingu represents the moon, right? Whom she had created to fight in war. These 11 monsters represent her 11 dark powers, which oppose the powers of light. Tiamat also bestowed on Kingu the Tablet of Destinies, a mythical emblem of the supreme authority over the universe. Until that moment, the dominion had belonged to the mother goddess alone, the supreme mistress of the universe and all creation. The younger gods chose Marduk as their champion and commander of their army and endowed him with the power of the four winds, the north, south, east, west. Watch this. Tiamat also bestowed, let me skip down. So that moment it had belonged, the younger gods chose Marduk of their army, again, at the four winds. In the battle which took place between the worlds, Marduk defeated Tiamat and split her flesh into two halves. From one of them, he fashioned the earth, and from the other, the sky. So we're talking about Mother Nature. This is where we get the term Mother Nature. Why do they refer to earth as a she? Everything is a she. She runs the car, right? I heard my father used to always say, she runs like a beauty, right? Right? She there. Everything is referred to as a she. Nature is referred to as Mother Nature, not Father Nature. Why is that? Because it's taking you back to this, because we know creation, whether we're talking about from a story like this, or we're talking about the birth process that takes place through the womb of the female, right? That's what we talk about internally about these chaotic waters or this watery abyss. I said this many times before, go back and reflect. You, all of us, lived in a sack of water for 9 months in those primordial chaotic waters before we were birthed physically into this world. So it's a fact. You live in the watery chaotic abyss for 9 months, okay? This is fact, okay? It's talking about now, first what takes place in the inside of the womb of the female, and then how this reflects externally through creation, okay? So this is why we refer to the female, the divine mother. All these terms we use in relationship to spirituality come from this story of Tiamat, which then gets filtered down into other pantheons, whether you're dealing with Aset or Isis, whether you're dealing with Lilith, the list goes on and on. Kali, this is what we're dealing with, okay? So this is where we get these concepts, these understandings, right? We need to look at this, and now let's go a little further and how we apply this really, because we're going to get into the first mother, and then we'll continue going on. So from one of them, he fashioned the earth, and from the other, the sky. Her weeping eyes became the source of the rivers, same thing that we just read in the other thing, and her breast formed the mountains of the earth. He took the tablets of destiny from Kingu, and he forced the gods who sided with Tiamat to work in service for the other gods. Eventually, he killed Kingu, and from his blood, Nundamud created mankind, whose task was to replace the gods in their work. Babylon was established as the residence of the chief gods, and Marduk was elevated by receiving 50 names in praise of his great powers, right? The last thing I want to finish with is, well, the last two things, the first mother and the primal chaos. And then I'll stop and I'll see what questions you guys got or comments. In the Enuma Elish, Tiamat is described as Umu Hubor, who formed all things. The name Hubor sometimes refers to the river under the world. She is also related to the Hebrew concept of Tihon, right? And I saw somebody mention that earlier. Some do say they are one and the same thing. I'll address that. I saw that question earlier. Again, you can synchronize. This is what I was talking about earlier. you can synchronize a lot of deities or archetypes from other cultures and dogmas and connect them. Because again, you have to know your history. They all interact and one was influenced by the other. Usually the ones that came before or predated the more modern ones, that's where they were influenced from. So you always got to keep in mind, they took these ancient stories and grimoires and they just changed some of the wording. They changed the name of some of the gods just to suit their culture, their language, and their spiritual religion. That's all that happened. That's basically what you're reading in a nutshell when you're reading your Bible. You're reading your creation story. You're seeing a lot of the biblical characters were grafted from these texts that predated. That's it. I've talked about this many times over the years, right? That dispels the mythology and the nonsense of religion. If people would just do basic research, we wouldn't even be having these arguments, these fussing and fighting. But you can't win a battle with somebody who takes things literally, especially a religious person. You ain't going to win that battle. You're wasting your time. You could be slapping them upside the head with facts left and right. They're not trying to hear it. When somebody is so dogmatic and controlled by faith and belief, you're wasting your time. They got tunnel vision. They're not going to see things, okay? They're not going to have any understanding because all they understand is faith and belief and what Pastor Porkchop told them. That's it. So you're not going to really convince them. So that's when you say to yourself, why am I going to waste my time and energy? It's not even worth my time. Let them figure it out if they do or if they don't. That's on them. Who cares? That's why I'm saying the back and forth fuckery is a waste of time. Because when a person is set in their ways, they're not gonna see it. They got to be wanting and willing to change, or at least be open to dialogue to something that might be in opposition of their belief system. And that's a hard thing to do with a religious person who solely operates off of faith and belief. But yet again, their very Bible tells them faith without works is what? Dead. So it goes deeper than just personal faith. Right? The first mother, right? Let's continue. All right, we left off with the Tehom in Hebrew, the great deep of the primordial waters. Tiamat and Apsu personify the cosmic abyss filled with primal energies which preceded the original creation. Notice it said it preceded the original creation. What are we talking about here? A state of void. We know now we're getting into what Leviathan represents, right? Because there's a connection with Leviathan and Tiamat, right? We know Leviathan is the point, the essence, the origin of that primordial chaos that emerged, that Tiamat emerges as the primordial chaos war, chaotic waters. We see this symbolicism in a lot of cultures. Aquaman, right? Recently, the movie that came out about a year or two ago really showed that, right? The trident, which is, I find, is synonymous with that pantheon, and Aquaman uses the trident. The trident is also synonymous with Lucifer, right? There's a symbolicism there with that three represents, right? We see as Aquaman finally is able to ride the great sea monster Leviathan, right? Towards the end of the movie, what does that represent symbolically? Remember, this is why I say this story is the battle and the war you go through internally. Because if you've seen the movie, right, and they fucked with you in the movie, you had to pay attention. They threw a lot of Lovecraft shit in there. They even showed Lovecraft's book for a split second. If you weren't paying attention, you missed it. All right, there's a scene, and the movie takes place, if you saw the movie, and I did a whole video on this. If you get time, go back and watch the video. But I want to touch on something in there again because it connects to what we're talking about here. Remember, the movie takes place in New England, in the New England area. That's where Lovecraft was from. That's not a coincidence, right? They incorporate a lot of the Call of Cthulhu in the movie. If you've read Lovecraft's work, Cthulhu, you will see that the movie was highly influenced by the Call of Cthulhu, right? There's a scene in the early portion of the movie where Aquaman, who, keep in mind now, he's half human and half God because his mother is a god who the movie, as they say in the story, comes from Atlantis, and his father was a mere mortal human. And they met and married and gave birth to Aquaman. So Aquaman struggles with his human nature, pay attention to this, and he struggles to accept his divine or godly-like nature. Sound familiar? That's us. We get so caught up in the mortal aspect of ourselves. Our whole life, we struggle to understand our place in the scheme of things, our role, who and what we are, right? Who are you? What are you? And why are you, right? We talk about that a lot in the mentorship program, right? Aquaman, the movie is about Aquaman struggling to understand this, right? And he goes through, and when he's in this early scene, he's talking to his father on a pier. And on the ledge of the pier, there's a book, and it's Lovecraft. And they show it for about 5 seconds, maybe less. And they show the binding part of the book with Lovecraft's name. And it has I believe it was called Cthulhu. I can't remember, or it said Lovecraft something, H.P. Lovecraft. Why did they subliminally throw that out there? Because they're trying to tell you there's a connection there, right? So long story short, again, when you get time, go watch that video. But long story short, to speed up and get back in line with what we're doing here. Throughout the whole movie, he struggles. He's trying to understand this whole being human and divine at the same time. That's us. And so the whole movie is about the journey he takes to come to that realization. And there's a female that guides him through the journey, not a coincidence, etc. But long story, towards the end of the movie, you might even seen this on the commercial and the promo. You see him merging from the waters with the trident in his hand, standing on top of and riding the great beast of Leviathan, right? The great sea monster, as they call it in the mythology, right? What that imagery, and that represents so much because it talks about, at that moment, he comes to the realization of who he really is, okay? He comes to the realization that he is a God, that the mortal aspect of himself was his weaker or lower self, and he needed to understand the right harmony or formula of the mortal and the godlike nature that he truly represented. So he comes riding the great beast. Now, Leviathan, as we know in the occult, represents continuity and existence, the principle of continuity and existence. In continuity, you must be consistent, right? He had come full circle to the realization of who he really is. Not who he thought he was, not who he was programmed to think he was, and three, not who he had convinced himself he was prior to having the real understanding of the truth. So now he controls the primordial chaotic energy. He knows he emerges from it, but he knows he's not consumed by it no more because now he has an understanding of who and what he is and what the representation of this really means. That's what the Aquaman story is about. It's your story. It's your journey. It's what you go through in life to get to where we're all striving to get to, that state of godhood, of understanding who and what we really are. Not what we've been programmed, not what we've been told, not what we've been indoctrinated with through religion and society and education and institutional systems, because that's the forced methodology that they tried to push on us. We got to come to that realization ourselves, not because somebody told us, okay? All right, then it goes on to say, the ancient Mesopotamians believed in the world was a flat circular disk surrounded by a saltwater sea. The earth was a continent which floated on the second sea, the freshwater Apsu, from which all waters, including springs, rivers, wells, and lakes, flowed on the land. The sky was a solid disk of the earth, which curved to touch the earth at its rim. The heaven, or the habitation of the gods, was above the sky. The first mother goddess was the primal source of all life, the embodiment of primal chaos, the cosmic womb, okay? Which gave birth to all gods and all souls. She held dominion over the forces of creation, and she possessed the power to shape destinies, which is, here's the word again, symbolic of the supreme authority over the whole universe. In the Anuma Elish, when of the gods none had been called into being, and none bore a name, and no destinies were ordained. She was the first force of creation, the origin of life, the source of all movement and evolution. However, when she turned against her own children, the younger generation of God, she also became the force of destruction, the devouring monster, the ever gaping womb, and the mother of destruction. And the mother, when it says the mother of abominations, people misinterpret that. That's not a bad thing. It means she was not going to conform to anybody's particular ideology or way. She was going to do this shit her way. People hear the word abomination and immediately the program indoctrinated definition comes to mind. Oh, abomination means something disgusting and evil and filthy. That's not how it's meant in the Grimoire. No. She became an abomination in the eyes to those who opposed her because she wasn't going along with the norm. According to them, through their eyes and understanding, she was going against everything that was established as the norm. So they looked at that as an abomination. So therefore, she's given the title, the mother of abominations. Okay? People get that shit twisted. I've had people even ask, oh, why do they refer to her as a mother of abominations? Well, there's your answer. It's not a bad thing. It's just, how are you perceiving it? What's your perspective of it? Okay? That's why she's referred to it that as the devouring monster, the mother of abominations. Once a caring and nurturing parent, she turned into a vengeful warrior goddess, the mother of monsters and all evil of the world. This Tiamat shit ain't this pretty, fluffy, bunny shit that a lot of these New Agers presented as. Ain't nothing fluffy about Tiamat. I can tell you that shit right now. If you're working with the real primordial chaotic mother, okay, it's raw. It's aggressive. This ain't no, she make you learn the hard way. She's about tough love, tough lessons. And it's not about, sorry to say, sympathy, let alone sympathy. And there's no empathy. It's about get it done. And it's going to be done the way it needs to be done, even if those who look at it say that doesn't seem right. Guess what? She doesn't give a shit. When you work with that energy, that's what you're in store for. If you're trying to really master and understand self, be prepared what you're going to uncover. Not all of it's going to be pleasant. Not all of it's going to be pretty. You're going to have to deal with some of the fucked up characteristics about yourself, some of the fucked up behaviors you exhibit, some of your habits that are out of line. I don't care if it's from eating food to disciplining yourself with money, finances, to a fucked up temper, and you have no patience and none of your anger is under control, or you just you reckless and abandoned to yourself. You will understand why. And she will show you by ripping that to shreds to the very core. So you can see what's standing there, but sometimes it all has to be taken away in order for you to rebuild it back up. See, that's the problem. And not many are willing to do that. Well, we're witnessing that right now in the world, okay? We're witnessing that right now in the world because everything we knew as the norm is being stripped and ripped apart from us, being ripped away. And now we're faced to make our own personal order out of this chaos because a lot of people's way of living has been disrupted, okay? And some are adjusting because they were prepared for this change. They knew it was coming. They had seen it coming for years, but then there's some that just never thought it would happen. So they're struggling. They're trying to understand it. Some are going into deep states of depression. Some are struggling to just cope with everyday life and living because of the great change we're going through. Not all are prepared for change. When you're working with Tiamat, prepare for change. All right. So I wanted to do this video because I want to dispel the mythology, the wrong mythology on Tiamat. Because again, as I said in the beginning of the video, there's this fluffy perspective, there's this literal perspective, there's this religious perspective, and then there's people who look at the allegorical and literal aspects and harmonize them both to get a good understanding of what this is about. Okay. This is how we have to approach this. Okay. And look, yes, I know I've had many discussions with people over the years. I get it. I know everybody has a certain level that they might perceive this, and that's fine. But I can only tell you based on my experience and understanding working with this based on the results that I get. I can't work with it or understand it any other way. I left all those aforementioned earlier concepts alone years ago. I just don't bother with it because it's nonsense. What good is it just if you have the information or just the history, but you can't utilize that information to better yourself? Then all you got is history and information. That's my whole point. So what good is it? Nobody really gives you a factual answer to that. All right. So let's continue on. As the goddess of the primordial waters, Tiamat was often portrayed in a monstrous, bestial form and imagined as a sea serpent or a dragon. However, not much is known about her appearance from the myth itself. I've even seen people draw pictures of Tiamat, which is comical. All right. Because there's no documented image of Tiamat. Now, I don't care if you've drawn it based on you had a vision or a meditation, then just specify and be clear from that. I've seen many people over the years try to depict these gods and draw them as if this is exactly how they look. Can't do that. It's impossible. Because you know how they're going to look? They're going to look how you manifest them. How you have created, shaped, and molded them in your mind based on what you've absorbed, based on what you read. The images, remember, your mind, your subconscious mind is like a computer. It's like a hard drive on a computer. Everything you program it with, it absorbs. It stores there. So if you're programming your mind with images of Tiamat and studying all this information on Tiamat, whatever it may be, and you go into a meditation or a visualization on this, and then you say, I went into this deep meditation, and I saw Tiamat, and she appeared and looked like such and such. Well, that's because your mind is now accessing the data that you programmed it with. That's it. People just make this more deeper than it is. It doesn't mean because the way you saw it, that's how everybody else has to see it, or that's the way it is. No, because just as the way you saw it, there's going to be somebody else that's going to come right behind you and saw it a completely different way. So the question is, why does that happen? Well, I just gave you the answer. That's why it happens. So we can get into this back and forth fuckery. Who was first? This came first. Oh, no, they look like this. And this one was this, and this one was that. Who gives a shit? You know, that's irrelevant, pointless. That's the semantics of the discussion. That's for insecure people that feel like they need to be the first or the greatest to stroke and mind fuck their ego so they can feel like they think they know something that somebody else don't know. But that shit gets smashed apart in the greater scheme of things, because the reality is, what the fuck is it doing for you? Is it making you, is that information going to help master yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially? If no, I don't even want to hear it. I'm not interested in anything that does not align with those 5 principles. That's where I'm at in my journey. I'm not interested in, I don't care to waste my time getting into historical debates. No, it doesn't impress nobody. With all this technology now, maybe years ago, before we had Google and the internet, and we didn't have access to all these online libraries and resources, you know, back then, I'm telling you, I come from that old school era in the 80s and the 90s. Back then, if you had a spot where you found hard to find books, you had a one-up on people because you had access to information that people didn't have. Well, you could get away with that fuckery back then. You can't get away with that fuckery now, because now at the drop fingertip, you can get on this internet and find about anything you're looking for nowadays. So history is easy to find. Books now and all that shit is easy to find. I'm not impressed by it. I don't care. It's a waste of time. Okay, so this is why you don't see me going into tangents and videos on historical information. I touch on it. I've discussed it here and there when it applies to the situation, but I'm not going to go into that. That's some shit you can do on your own. It doesn't take a genius to now have the ability to do that. Again, back then, you know, people, you'd get impressed by it because we didn't have the technology at the fingertips we have now. So that shit is pointless. All right. Let me finish with this, and then time we got. Yeah, no, let's get to the chat. All right. I just want to get into the chaos part briefly after this. So let me finish with this last thing. I'm not going to go through all this. Tiamat, above all, is the universal mother who gives birth to all creation in her womb, the salty waters. This was the original habitation of the gods before Marduk created the earth and chose Babylon as his residence. While the gods moved to live in the heaven, Marduk does not possess the natural power of creation. Marduk does not possess the natural power of creation. Okay? This is why I said people will use the term, well, Marduk killed Tiamat. He didn't kill Tiamat. He split her in half. That is always left out of the story. She was not killed. I hear so many people make the mistake when they talk about this story. It says she was split in half. And from that splitting, life emerged. So through what some are referring as a slaying or a splitting, more life emerged. Because from within, the real self presented itself. As it says, she gave birth to the 11 monsters. Is it a coincidence there's 11 Klepothic or Klepothic shells when we work with the Klepot? Do you think that's a coincidence? Why the number 11? Why the 1 and the 1? Okay. Why? Ask yourself that question. Because after the 11th, you go to the Sitra Akra, the other side, where you tap into the primordial chaotic energy, where you tap into the void and the abyss, where you meet the primordial mothers, Lilith, Nama, Hecate, Arachne, Tiamat, right? You meet the facilitators of the tree in the same form that we know as Samael / Lucifer and Lilith, the facilitators of the Klepothic tree, right? Then we get into the list goes on and on and on. When we're working with that energy, we're on that other side, into that void and abyss, as it said here, that existed before what we know as creation. What the fuck exists before creation? Remember, I said in order to have something first, you must have nothing first. We're going to get into that even more in depth tomorrow in the Patreon class. I'm not going to get into all that now, but we're going to get into that heavy tomorrow in the Patreon class. Again, tomorrow in that Patreon class, I'm going to be talking about the 4 anti-worlds and the states of non-existence. I ain't even going to fuck with that right now. That is going to help us understand, for those the seekers on this path, what it is we're doing from a mental and a spiritual perspective, right? I wanted to scratch on this because, like I said, this conversation came up from a sister that's in the mentorship program, and she brought this up the other day, and I just figured I'd touch on it. All right. I just thought it'd be a good conversation to touch on because it's going to get us to where we need to be, right? So he did not control this creation, right? Then it goes on to say, his power of the divine speech, the attribute of all patriarchal gods from the world's religions. In the Anuma Alis, he has to prove that he possesses this power before he is allowed to face Tiamat in battle. So he had to show and prove that he was worthy. All right. So first of all, why do people put Marduk on a superior level than Tiamat? That's not the case here. That's not what the story is showing you. Right? Watch, it gets even better. He is given a garment which he has to destroy and restore by the power of his word before he is entrusted by the gods as their champion. As the mother of creation, Tiamat is sometimes identified with the Sumerian goddess Namu, the mistress of the primordial sea, who gave birth to An and Ki, the heaven and the earth. They were both thought to personify the constellation in the northern sky known today as the Whale. All right, I'm not going to get into that whole constellation thing. I want to now finish with, you get the point with that, the primal chaos. Let's finish with this, and then we'll go to the chat. The motif of chaos preceding creation before is found in mythologies worldwide, is usually described as darkness or night, the void, the gaping abyss, the ocean of black waters. In the Greek lore, this is Tartarus. In Scandinavian myths, it is Ginnungagap. Egyptian cosmogony includes the primordial oceans of Nun. I was just talking about that earlier. And in the Sumerian tradition, we have the primordial watery abyss of Apsu and Tiamat. The womb of chaos is the birthplace and the abode of dragons, giants, monsters, demons, and primal gods. It is the Tohu Wahahu in the formless void described in Genesis. The black waters of the first mother are like the cosmic ocean of Nun. She is called the deep, the void, the womb, and the abyss. Gerald Massey associates the waters of Nun with the Tept, the abyss, the source of all life, and equates them with Tiamat, the great mother. Tept is the well from whence the waters issue, the dwelling underground, where the dragon gave birth to her brood of monsters. Now you know why we use the symbol of the dragon. why the dragon is synonymous with Lucifer, right? Why there's a path called the draconian path or the path of the dragon. Because of what the dragon represents, it takes us back to this, the abyss, the void, the primordial chaotic energy. That's where the real Luciferian or Lucifer energy manifests. Okay? Lucifer means light bearer, intellect, bearer of light. This is where one must go to obtain that light. Okay? Not this illusionary light, right? Not this chaos, not this chaotic illusionary light that we are indoctrinated with, that people struggle to make order out of, right? That's not where you go to obtain the intellect. Huh? All right, I'm going to skip down. As the watery chaos, Tiamat is identified with the Hebrew concept of Tihom, right? This is going to answer somebody's question earlier, so we don't have to answer that again, which means the deep. There is also a slight resemblance between the two accounts of creation, as they both include the motif by dividing the waters under the firmament from the waters above. In the Babylonian myth, again, I'm not going to go through that again. It talks about Marduk splitting Tiamat in half. We know what happened from that. So I'm going to skip down over here, not to go through that again. The primal mother goddess is the Mesopotamian lore, is the first one who gave birth to the gods of the universe, the mother of everything. She's self-procreating womb, the goddess without a spouse, the primal matter. She is the womb of abundance, the fertile and fertilizing waters which create spontaneously. All in one, the universe as a whole. She's the primal dragon of the void, the single mother, the self-contained womb, the division of primal materia into the masculine and the feminine element is the beginning of the process of creation. The feminine element, not the male. And this is why I've said, if men would take a step back and stop destroying this fucking planet, we might be in a better shape or condition if we'll let women take some of these leadership positions. Women are not responsible for starting all these wars. They could be at the root of it, because we know a woman's scorn has taken down civilizations. Look at Cleopatra, right? When a woman isn't happy, a civilization can crumble. We know this. History shows this. We know that women have the mindset and the craftiness, in a good way, and the intelligence to handle things, where men tend to be more reactive beings. We react more in our emotions. Women can be more proactive. Okay? I'm not saying all, but you get my point. But when we look at this world as a whole, everything that we see going on in this world, and I want to make this clear. I'm not on a kick of stroking the feminine ego, okay? Because there's people that do that on other platforms. They want to rant and go on a tangent how the woman is God and all that, and it sounds good, but they're usually doing that because they got an agenda. I'm just calling it for what it is, okay? I'm calling it for what it is. If men would just take a step back and stop destroying the fucking world and the planet, things might really change. But we're too egotistical because we feel it's a bruise to our ego and our manhood. Whoa, we're still very patriarchal and discriminative in our approach to life and spirituality, where we feel that, if I step back and let the woman take control, I'm less of a man. That's not true. Okay? Because if you go back into all these great cultures, and the two prominent ones, ancient Samaria or Mesopotamia that we're talking about today, or ancient Egypt, the female is held in higher esteem than the male. That's fact. Okay? Bottom line is, basic science destroys this whole man was created first bullshit in Genesis. Okay? We know, based on the facts, based on that carbon and fossil dating that people like to always use to verify shit, based on the bones of Lucy that they found in Ethiopia billions of years ago. Notice they call her ass Lucy. We know for a fact that physically females walk the planet first, which dispels the 6,000-year-old creation story in Genesis and the Adam and Eve bullshit. We know that comes grafted out of mythologies that predated it. Okay? And this is why nature is referred to as a she. She's Mother Nature, not Father Nature. This is why men refer to their things as a she, whether they're conscious or not. My car, she runs like a beauty. Oh, look at my boat, she's a beauty. Oh, isn't it? Where does this come from? Because this planet is governed by feminine energy, not masculine energy. Okay? The sooner we figure that out, the better off we'll be. Now, I want to make this clear. The understanding of Lucifer and Lilith, / Samael and Lilith, / Apsu and Tiamat, what it's showing with the merging of the salt water, the life, and the fresh water, you need the right formula of the masculine and the feminine to have that harmony that we're looking for. When you talk about you're working with the Klipothic tree because you're trying to become like a Baphomet, in the sense of what Baphomet represents. It's the harmony between the masculine and the feminine energy. That's it. That's what one achieves when they're working what we call the infernal union of Lucifer and Lilith. That's what one is achieving when they're working with the Klipothic. They're trying to create and establish that formula that they need within themselves to master themselves, to become what they're destined to be, right? But we have to understand, you can't be living on a realm that's governed by feminine forces and you're trying to take a patriarchal or a masculine approach. That's it. And that's where the struggle comes in. That's why we're in the situation we're in today, right? All right, let me finish with this and then I'll go to the chat for your questions and your comments. I think, a lot of this stuff kind of repeats itself. Yeah, I think we could kind of pretty much, let me just finish down with this last section here and then we'll stop. Okay, then it goes on to say the primal mother is either the sea or the earth, identified with such goddesses. As Ninema, the great queen, Ninersag, queen of the cosmic mountain, or Nintu, queen who gives birth. The world is composed of heaven, consisting of the sky and the space above the sky, which is called the great above, the earth. Consisting of the surface of the earth, the great below, which is thought to be the underworld and the abode of the chthonic deities. The primal mother goddess is the Mesopotamian law, is the first one who gave birth to the gods of the universe, the mother of everything, the self-procreating womb, the goddess without a spouse, the primal matter. All right, this kind of repeats itself. I don't think I really need to go through this, but I think you get the point. I'm going to stop there. I think you kind of get the point without being too redundant, because as we go through some of the rest of that, it kind of repeats itself of what we already discussed. So I'm not going to really go through all that. So what I will finish up with, let's go through some of these questions and comments. Let's see what we got. All right, let me go up. I'm going to start from the top, just to be fair. So if you got some questions or your comments, go ahead and put them in there, and I'll do my best to answer them. All right, so infernal blessings to all. Get that out the way. Excuse me. All right, it was a little off topic, but Rahabaina Mill asked, my head goes all the way back during meditation and gets stuck there almost. Have you experienced this and what did it lead to? Yes, you can get so stuck, especially if you're in transcendental meditation. You can get stuck in a certain position, and sometimes you can get stuck there. Again, why you get stuck there, I couldn't tell you. I know sometimes that can happen at moments where you're separating, or you feel a separation, or you separating from the body. There could be many reasons of it. Sometimes it could be you're just so locked into, especially when you hit alpha state, you can become such in a trance that the body sometimes, I don't want to say freezes up, but can get locked in that position. But there's many, many reasons. But I know I've experienced it only when I felt a separation taking place. Sometimes it'll go all the way back. All right. What else we got? All right, so the next question by Any tips on controlling involuntary muscle contraction during deep meditation? That's a tough one. I'll get that in my legs. I'll feel pulsating in my legs or my calf. Sometimes I'll get it in the shoulder or the arm. Sometimes it's not really, well, first the explanation can be a couple of things real quick. That could be leading to, one, we talked a lot on the last show about when you're activating Kundalini energy, there is physical effects to it. That definitely can be one aspect of it. Now, controlling it really, you're talking about the body just going through a natural process to heal itself. When I say heal itself, it's got to rid itself or express from itself what needs to be expressed in order for things to line up. So sometimes that's just a simple effect. Now, if it's happening constantly, then yeah, there's definitely, you might want to look further because there's definitely something going on that needs to be addressed. It could be an imbalancement, a chemical imbalancement that's related to health. You could be activating and awakening energy that maybe health-wise is a little bit too much for you to intake. Then you got to address basic things, hydration. Sometimes people don't realize the answers to some of those things are basic and simple, and it's not always spiritual, but it could be many things. All right. Then I guess you got another question, same person. How important is it to build your own astral body before tapping into different currents of energy? It's very important because your astral body, you're tapping into the understanding of it through your subjective consciousness. And as I was talking about earlier, I'm not sure if you were on here, we're building and destroying simultaneously on that subjective level all the time. So it's very important to understand yourself first in relation to that. Because if you don't, remember, know thyself and thou shalt know the gods. That goes on to a multitude of levels. That's why I keep telling people, you can't fuck with all these deities and work with all this energy if you don't know yourself. So it's very important. All right. Tall and Thin says, have you seen another guy here on YouTube called Truth Seeker? He's an artist and has a few songs. You should check him out. I'll take a look at that. No. I heard of Rock. Yeah. That I have heard of that person. I'll check him out. Yeah, if I can get him on. I'm trying to support any artist, especially if you're doing occult content, because there's not a lot of artists out there doing that. And I do know there are a lot of artists who are on this path, but they just don't have the form or the medium to express themselves. So I like on the one of the main inspirations behind the hip hop and occult show. Is for that reason, to give some of these artists who are rhyming about the occult and dropping consciousness and knowledge on this path, to give them that platform. In addition, we talk about hip hop in general, but we call it Hip Hop and the Occult Show because we want to incorporate some of the occult and the left-hand path in it. And our next show, again, since we're talking about that, will be Friday, October 2nd, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, but I'll check them out. Beautiful Soul. I think that's if I'm not mistaken, that's Sister Aretha. If I'm not mistaken, that's actually the person I was talking about earlier. If it's the person I think it is, that this conversation came up with. All right. What else we got? Okay, I'm not sure what that one was. All right, KKK. All right, looking for questions. There. As far as I think, who was this? Joe Garden's about as far as books. There's a lot of books out there. Obviously, you should fuck with the Necronomicon, Lovecraft. He really explores an inner aspect and the dark aspects of the Babylonian Mesopotamian path. As I said, I mentioned some of the writings of Zechariah Stitchin, Asenath Mason. Again, I was throwing out there Jeremy Black. Anthony Green, I believe, has another book. I can't remember the name of it. Also, I think it's David Tellinger. I think that's his name. Hold on. Let me pull it up. Temple of the Anunnaki. Hold on, let me pull it up. Yeah, that's another book I read a long time ago. Hold on one second. That's another good book. Hold on. Let me get the exact title. I just don't want to butcher it. It's Michael Tellinger. Hold on. African Temples of the Anunnaki. That's the name of the book by Michael Tellinger. That's another really good book. African Temples of the Anunnaki. And he really connects the origin of these gods and deities. There's been a lot of discussion over the years, the connection with ancient Sumeria and Egypt. There's some that say which one was first. Again, it's a debatable thing. And they say that one was heavily influenced by the other. He connects the African origins of the Anunnaki, and a very interesting book. I would definitely check that one out too. That's some that come to mind, and I'm sure there's plenty others. I just can't think of them all now. Okay. Well, I see what you guys are talking about, Ratu Elevated and Kati Mama. Point of the matter is, yes, I get it. I mean, I think, again, we know that these were African gods and deities. I think we all know that. So when we're reading books such as Zechariah Stitchem, that's why I was saying earlier, we should study all different materials because, yes, there are going to be some authors who are not going to recognize. And again, I don't want us to get into this whole, I don't want you guys debating with each other. We can agree to disagree, but there will be authors, Zechariah Stitchem, yeah, he's not going to, some of these European authors will not own up to it. But we know for a fact these were African gods and goddesses. Now, Michael Tellinger is actually European, and he, believe it, is one of the few Europeans that does confirm that these were black gods. Again, there's two good points there. I understand where Ratu Elevated is coming from. It is a fact. But again, we have to understand two different things here. The information, as long as we have an understanding as far as we're applying this to our path, and we're getting results, we can get into the historical debates, who was first, who was, as I said earlier. I don't even think we need to have those debates. I think everybody knows the ancient Egyptians. We shouldn't even be debating that stuff. We're black. We know these ancient Sumerian gods have their point in African origin. What I am saying is, I'm not saying that we should negate that fact at all, because again, that is truth. But it can become toxic if that's all we're focused on, is what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that Ratu Elevated is, and I'm not saying that Kati Mama is denying the fact that they were black. But what I'm saying is we got to understand the line in there. As long as we have that understanding, then we got to look at the bigger, the bigger scheme of things. And I've said for years going back, even before I was on YouTube, I've always confirmed in all of my classes that these gods and goddesses obviously had their point in origin in ancient Egypt and Africa, right? We know that. And this is why I say those arguments are pointless. Why do we even have to debate that? I don't care who you are, black, white, Latino, Asian, you're supposed to know that by now. That's why I say, and I'm not saying that to negate the fact that they were. I'm saying that, are we really, in 2020, do we really have to have the discussion that the ancient Egyptians were black? I mean, come on. If you don't know that by now, come on. I don't even want to have a conversation with you. Because if we're going to struggle with that, I can't even imagine what we're going to struggle with moving forward. But I get the point. Okay. What else we got? Yeah, Mystic Moons. I know you, I forgot you somewhere 6-7 hours ahead of us. You over there in Europe, over there somewhere. Oh, peace, brother Angel. Yeah, I got to catch up with you, brother. I know it's been a minute, man. There's a lot of shit going on. I'm try to catch up with you, brother. Well, actually, try to give me a call or text me after this, and then we'll set something up for maybe Sunday. All right. What else we got? Vision TG. You must have came on late. I was saying a lot of people keep telling me they're not or missing the notifications. Again, this applies to anybody's YouTube channel, not just mine. When you subscribe to a YouTube channel, I know people say, yeah, I subscribe to the channel. Yeah, I hit the notification bell. I still don't get the notifications. Well, I didn't know this. I found this out a couple of months ago. Not only do you have to subscribe and hit the notification bell, also hit the notification bell and make sure get all notifications is checked. Because if all notifications isn't checked, you're only going to get the ones that pop up in your feed whenever YouTube decides to feed you them. I don't know. Some of you may know that, but I'm putting that out there again for those that may not know that. I didn't even know that because I'm subscribed to some channels. I watch a lot of comedy channels on YouTube, and I get pissed off sometimes when I don't. There's a brother I watch all the time, Big Ja. He's got a comedy channel. You got to check this dude out. This dude, man, I could watch that in any mood. I mean, this dude puts out some funny ass shit. BIG space JAH, Big Ja. He's out of California. He's linked up with a bunch of other brothers that have split out and sisters that have done their own comedy channels. But I found him about 2 years ago. I've been watching him ever since, man. Big Ja. Check him out. BIG JAH. Funny as shit. But yeah, you must hit the notification bell. And then when you hit it, it'll say you want to receive some notifications or all notifications. You must check all notifications. If you don't, again, you will only get the notifications however the fuck YouTube decides to feed you that. I don't know how they do that or decipher that, but apparently you don't get them all. I didn't know that. So I want to put that out there. If you do know that, great. If you don't, I'm putting it out there for those that may not know that. That's the problem. And I didn't know that for the last couple of years because people have been telling me that for about 2-3 years now. So, YouTube is always updating their software and their platform and all that shit. So it must be something with that. But that's what it is. I found that out for a fact. All right. What else we got? Excuse me. Joe Gardens. That's a good question. Does that mean you can find harmony on any path? No. Because if the path is not geared around tackling all aspects of yourself, you're not going to get real harmony. You can get illusionary harmony. For an example, a lot of these new age paths that everything is light and love, meditate everything away. I love you. We're all one. That's not really fact because it doesn't prepare you for the hardships. It doesn't prepare you for the chaotic shit you're going to deal with in your life. And most of all, it doesn't prepare you to address past life traumas. I'm saying on a consistent level. I'm not saying they don't do to some degree. So no, if it's a path that is not tackling all aspects of yourself, the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the ugly, you're not going to get that harmony you're looking for. Can you get moments of harmony? Yes. Can you get periods where you feel like harmony? Yes, of course you can. You can do that on any path when you submerge yourself in any religion or dogma. But overall, no, it doesn't exist. Okay? But it's a good question. All right, what else we got? Yeah, and I think Ashara, that was to when I was talking about earlier, how the media now, with this pandemic, and they're doing it hard. It's all, again, I don't watch a lot of TV when it comes to, outside of live streaming shit and sports. But when I do get a chance to turn on the idiot news channels, as I said before, you can see the agenda. One, CNN with their fake concern for black people. It's just nauseating. And their fake white guilt. And they're so liberal, and they're so concerned, peace and love, and we're all equal. And now all of a sudden they have so much love and concern for black people. It's bullshit. Then you got Fox News, which is pro-Republican, super conservative, and trying to restore the old ways of white America. And then you got MSNBC, which is they're neutral. They're in between. I notice how they jam those three news platforms down our throat. You got CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News. And that's the platforms they're trying to push. But I notice all of them, really outside of Fox News, is pushing this depression thing. I see all these pieces on, depression is going up. The percentage of suicide is going up. Clinical professionals are noticing a large percentage rise, a triple-fold percentage rise in clinical depression because of the pandemic. So they're again, it's part of the fucking mind control, right? Remember, so a man thinketh it is. You become your thoughts. You start feeding into that shit and absorbing it and sucking it up, you're going to be depressed, okay? But yeah, it's fucked up. Brian Gerard, hello from Southern Cal. All right, Brian. First time. I'm not sure if it's your first time here. If so, welcome. Yeah, things are changing faster and faster. Joe Gardens. Oh, Kate Miyama is from Southern Cal too, I guess. Maybe that was a misspell. Oh yeah, Southern Cal too. Mystic Moons, I know you left, but you said 2013, the Astrological Society discovered that our galaxy, the Milky Way, is positioned in the middle of a void, which can be read in ways, for me, that is symbolic that the prime mortal war. Yes, I've always said this galaxy is submerged in darkness. Our planet is submerged in darkness. And I want to get into the whole flat earth shit. And then you got the other conspiracy theories. Oh, that's all an illusion. All those pictures you see from NASA aren't real. Well, until your ass flies in a spacecraft and goes out of space and brings back your own personal footage, your shit is not authentic either. I said that one time. I was having a discussion with a person a couple years back, 4 or 5 years ago. They were on that, outer space isn't real. I forgot what the fuck this person was, but they were just ridiculous with their conspiracies. So I said, I'll tell you what, one thing I don't have respect for is people who bash sources, but then use the same sources to validate their point. I ain't got no respect for that. Okay? There's a lot of people that do that and they're not even aware of it. Okay? That's why I say you got to come to your conclusions. So I told this person, if that's your stance, the same sources, you're using references, books, authors, lecturers, scientists, and the same stuff that you're using from them to validate your point, they've said things that go against your point. It doesn't work both ways. So until you fly a craft or develop the technology to go out there and prove that and take some footage, then you don't really know either. Okay? But I agree. This planet is engulfed in darkness. We're submerged in darkness all the time. That's a good point. Yes, there is Katai Mama. There is a vampiric aspect to Tiamat because she is very vampiric in nature. She is a devourer. Remember, they refer to her as the great devourer, absorber, right? And again, the class on the 3rd, I'll be talking a little bit about that. We're going to be getting into stuff like that. All right, what else we got? Yes, the womb is the transmutation of the self. Mystic Moons. Remember, there's a 9-month, why 9? There's that number 9 again, right? There's that 9-month period or transmutation period where you really go from a water being, right? We literally, what we don't want to accept, that we are water beings because, look, our body is comprised of 67 to 70% of water. The planet is. We're basically living in what we call a salt/saltwater, freshwater aquarium. If we don't get a certain amount of water, we can dehydrate and die, right? We are water beings. That's a fact. It's confirmed, the fact that we sat in a sack of water for 9 months. We had to. That gestation 9-month period had to happen, right? And again, it's like a water creature who comes to the surface. They can only stay on the surface for so long without water or they'll die and dehydrate. So they have to go back into water. It's the same thing with us. Don't fool yourself. You think you're human, right? You think you're human, but if you stay on this surface without water for an X amount of period of time, what'll happen to your ass? You'll die too. Don't get it twisted. You're breathing in. What is oxygen? What is oxygen? What elements does oxygen make up? H2O, hydrogen, right? And helium, right? Without that oxygen, without that H2O, you won't survive. So now go back and look at this Tiamat story even on a more internal level. Now go back and look at the sea monsters. Now go back and look at the void and the abyss, the great dragon. Go back and look at the fresh waters and the salt waters and the womb of the great mother. I hope it's all sinking in now and making sense what this really represents. It's the story of you, okay? It's telling you, and I'm glad you bring this up, Mr. Moore, it's telling you about the transmutation of yourself, okay? So somebody's listening, somebody's paying attention, okay? I hope it's all sinking in. And that's, if I had to sum it up, that's probably the best way I could sum it up in a short period. All right, so Ishara Nocturnalis says Tiamat is extraterrestrial, question mark. Are humans extraterrestrial? All right, let's first establish that word. All right, I've talked about this many times over the year, but you have to be careful when you talk about extraterrestrials because there is a space cadet community out there of extraterrestrials. I'm not saying you, Ashara, but I'm very cautious when I approach on this topic because it can get taken out of context. So let me explain. As we know, English is a serious language of confusion. So let's look at that word in English and break it and dissect it. We have the word terrestrial and extra. What is something extra? It's something in addition, right? Something in excess surplus, right? The word terra and astral is in there, right? Terra is one, as we know, in cultures that predated, is one of the ancient words or titles that was used for Earth, terra, right? And then we have the word astral, right? So when you're saying extraterrestrial, you're saying something that's coming outside of Earth or terra. That's astral, that's coming from outside of Earth and entering our atmosphere. So now, once that does it, we can become extraterrestrial. So for an example, a meteorite or asteroid can be an extraterrestrial, right? A craft of unknown origin can be an extraterrestrial. And then we have different bands that are classified as extraterrestrials, right? Again, this could be a whole nother class for a whole nother time. I don't want to get into this too much right now. We have different, Dr. Delbert Blair talked about Vulcan deities, reptilian deities. He talked about grays, reptilians. Contrary to belief, what people may or may not know, that's where Dr. York was highly influenced. He probably wouldn't have told you that, but trust me when I tell you that's where he got a lot of that information from, because Dr. Blair was teaching that shit long before anybody was. So there's a lot of information out there on extraterrestrials. So when we use that term, in essence, yes, and that's why I was alluding to the Aquaman story. In essence, all of us, if we want to, in the term classified as that, we know we're not this earthly, mortally being that we see in the flesh and the blood. We know our origin comes from these great bands that we discussed that come from beyond or outside of our atmosphere, of course. And this is where we have to connect with a lot of these gods and goddesses and demons on this path. So if we want to look at it in that point, I just want to make sure we're defining, because sometimes people hear the word extraterrestrials and the first thing they only think of is these big grays and aliens. That's not what it's limited to. So what I'm saying in a nutshell, yes, there are superior beings or supreme beings that look, that look just like us. They're not all these characters that are described that we see in a lot of these pantheons. So why I say you have to tread carefully when you use that word, because there's again, that too has become systematic and programmed, and there's certain indoctrination with that, because you have I like to say these UFO alien groupies who in my opinion have an agenda. And look, I don't want to get into, we can get into the whole abduction thing, right? I've read all the stories on it over the years. And are these abductions real, or are they products of the imagination of these people? You got to remember, it's as real on when somebody's having an intense experience on a subjective level, it can appear to be very objective. So you can't really determine how objective or subjective that experience was. Now, my research on when it comes to the abduction theory and connecting with these bands or extraterrestrial bands, as they say, I do believe these people definitely experienced something, but I definitely don't think we can pinpoint word verbatim exactly what it is, because I think they've had an intense subjective experience that has merged into their objective existence. So yes, there's definitely something happening, but you have to be careful because, again, it can get a little loony and bizarre. We'd have to be a fool to think we're the only intelligent life form on this planet. That's just ridiculous. Again, the fact that we would even have to have that conversation is comical to me. If we think we're the only intelligent life form here, then come on. We know the government's been hiding that shit from us for years. We know our government has been in communication with intelligent beings for years. Come on. There's documents that you can actually, government documents that you can pull up to verify this. This is nothing new. But I say we have to be careful in how we tread. I'm not going to sit around worrying if some aliens and some spaceships are coming because I can't be afraid of those same things that they're teaching us to be afraid of. We are those same things. I'm not going to sit around and fear something that I am. You understand? It doesn't make any sense. So you have to be careful with that. But yes, I can be in line with that statement. All right. And it kind of answers your question, Joe Gardens, as far as humans and the hybrid thing. That's why I brought up the Aquaman thing. Yes, it can get very intense. Yeah, Aquaman does have similarities to Kraken, Jason, and the Argonauts. I find it interesting, though, the new, because I'm a huge NHL hockey fan. I love hockey. Missing the playoff game tonight. Islanders probably got their asses kicked, but I'm a Panthers fan anyway. But anyway, there's a new franchise that starts next year in the NHL, and they're playing out of the city of Seattle in Washington State, called the Seattle Kraken. That's what they're calling the team, the Seattle Kraken. I found that interesting. Trying to dig up more research why they chose that for the name of the franchise. And I know it's connected to that, but I'm going to find out for sure. But yes, there is a connection there, similarity. Blade of Astor. Hey, I'm not saying how long you've been here, but you got here. All right, what else we got? Luz Mary Morietta. This is resonating with me. It reminds me a lot of an aspect of Hecate, the energy scene. Yes, there is a connection there. You will see a lot of similarities to a lot of these primordial mother goddesses of the avoiding abyss. I mentioned earlier, whether it's Hecate, whether it's Arachne, whether it's Lilith, whether it's Tiamat, Kali, etc. The list goes on and on and on. You will see a lot of synchronizations and similarities with them because there is a connection there. Okay, so yes. Joe Garden says, could the trident be like a tuning fork? Yes. The trident has a multitude of meanings. Actually, I read something on that one of the classes we did. Actually, I have it right here, and it's actually, hold on. See if I can. It's funny you bring that up. Hold on one second. All right. Real brief. I ain't gonna go too long to this. And this is in the Draconian Ritual book. The trident as a symbol offers many interpretations. In ancient times, it was an emblem of power and authority, attributed to such gods as Poseidon, Neptune, and Shiva. In the Draconian tradition, as it is worked with both in personal practice and in the temple of the ascendant flame, it is symbolic of Lucifer and represents both the current and the initiate. And I'm going to show you something. It stands for the pillar of ascent, the axis of the world, the initiate on Lucifer's path of flames, which begins in the cave of Lilith. The first initiatory realm of the path of the night side, and it is completed within the throne of Lucifer and Demeron. Now, let me show you something. My sons, I thought this was funny. With Neptune, right? Watch this. I got to show you this. I just thought this was funny because this is my son plays on an ice hockey team. Look at the name of the team. Neptunes. Look at the symbol on the jersey. It's the trident. And it just said this is a symbol of one of the gods, Neptune's. So interesting to, just thought I'd share that. That's the first thing I noticed when they gave those out. But hold on, put that over there for now. But let me finish with this real quick, and then I'm gonna show you something. Okay. Lucifer himself often appears with a trident in his hand or in a posture resembling the shape of the trident. It is also a symbol which he marks his initiates in the paradigm. Here's the key. The trident is the key to the current and symbol of the initiate's consciousness. So when you stand like this and raise your hands, and we use this position a lot, you're forming the trident. You got the middle part, you got the two hands. This is why you see this position. A lot of spiritual paths use this position. We utilize this a lot in invocation when we're performing ritual, because we are the trident. So in that sense, when you say, is it like a tuning fork? Yes, it's a tuning fork to tap you into that state of consciousness that just described. So yes, you are the trident. And that's why you see Kali holds a trident, right? You see her. I mentioned some of the other gods, Neptune, Poseidon, right? When you get into Atlantis and you see Aquaman in the Aquaman story, you see Aquaman works with the trident. It represents being in tune again with the realization and understanding of who you really are. It's a symbol that the individual is now conscious of their real self, right? So every time we see that, and that's why it's one of the most utilized or familiar symbols with the archetype Lucifer, because Lucifer basically comes with the trident because of what it represents. Right? We utilize that implement a lot in our ritualistic work and what it means. That symbol is drawn over our altar in a lot of the openings of our ritual. We draw the trident in the air over our altar space. It's a very important symbol, right? It's not just the devil on the pitchfork bottle, on the hot sauce bottle, right? It's spooky shit, but you get the point. Okay, so Liz, Mary, Marietta says, I've been working with Hecate and asked, what's next? Here it is. There you go. What else? Again, I know you kind of asked a similar question up top, Robbie. It could be the involuntarily muscle contractions or the involuntary. Oh, maybe that question came later and I didn't answer it yet. I think we already answered that up top. Ishara says, right now, Neptune is in Pisces, rules the oceans, has no boundaries. No wonder Tiamat is so powerful right now. Yeah, good. That's a good point. From an astrological standpoint, Mystic Moons. I thought you left. You still here? Unless these questions came earlier. I'm just kidding. A lot of people are talking about the eclipse and the black sun this December, but how, as Black adepts, can we tap into Tiamat or other energies linked to the void using the eclipse energy? Remember, you got to personalize it and make it your own. If the eclipse, which represents a moment of darkness, there's a simple ritual one can personally devise at the moment of the eclipse. You can design a ritual working, going into the womb, going into the void of the abyss, and connect with any of those deities by a simple invocation, but have an intent for at the moment of the eclipse when it happens. What's your goal to connect with that specific deity? So you can get creative and create any ritual centered around that. And you can work with any of those gods of the void and the abyss. I would just have a focal point of intent as far as creating the ritual and the implements used. You can be as creative as you want with that, but time it for the moment, or connect it with the actual experience, which is going to make the power of the ritual more effective. All right. Yeah, I see. Okay. I got you. Good time, Mama. Who goes far? I get it. What else? Yep, she did rage war on Marduk, right? And remember, as it said earlier, Marduk did not have the power to control creation. He had to be qualified. Okay. So look, we got to understand what this story represents. It goes against everything that mainstream teaches. And this is why she was called the mother of all evil, right? Right? That's a powerful term. But it can be perceived wrong because of what people's definition. I'm not talking about us on this path. We know what it means. But I'm talking about those that are not on this path hear that and go, why would you fuck with that? Why would you work with some stuff like that? It's not what you think it is. Take the time to understand what it is. Yes, something is nothing and nothing is something. That's it. And you must have nothing first in order to have something, because as I sit here right now, these are my hands. There's nothing in my hands, right? I start out with nothing. So if I have to get a book here, I grab a book. Now I got something in my hand, right? But before that was there was nothing. There's a science behind that. That's really understanding the void and the best. When it says it's a state of nothingness, a state of nothingness is, well, we'll get into that another time, but you get the point. All right, what else we got? Excuse me. Lei de Bastard, the nomini de loconis homegas. Lapis Bastet, Intuitive Vibrations. Wow, that's a long name. Hi, Beniti, how are you? Really, love your content. So educational. Have been listening to old school hip hop and R&B music on YouTube. In this video, wow, this popped up on the old school hip hop and R&B. That's fucking weird. And this video get popping, so took it as it's time to check in. Okay, well, that's interesting to know. It's weird that I would pop up in that search engine. Okay. Well, glad to have you here. Glad you checked in. Spirit driven. Unfortunately, women in leadership positions are just as masculine as men nowadays. That's true. And I don't think that's ever really changed. It's just when we go back years, they were just suppressed, right? Again, I talked about that earlier, and I'm sure that's what it was in reference to. If men would just take a step back and put their egos in check and not feel like it's stripping them of their manhood, this world might be a totally different place. Okay. And we're not talking about, let's get this straight. I know there's probably some men out there like, oh, I'm not talking about, look, there's fucked up men and women, period. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about some chicken head woman that's, all out. We're not talking about that. We're talking about, look, you got intelligent men and you got dumbass men. You got intelligent women and you got dumbass women. We're saying because this planet is governed by feminine energy, we can never see the possibilities of what this can become until we let that feminine energy rule. So that's what that basically means. But yes, I agree. Yes, the story does remind you of the fall of the divine feminine because, man, this is why a lot of those stories are centered around and prey upon the vanity of the female, right? Society preys upon the vanity of the female. So yes, it's a good way to characterize this as you can characterize it as that story. True, life would be born with only women. That's why I say you need the combination of the fresh water and the salt water, not just the salt water. So I'm glad you bring that up because let's now shift gears. And now some of you women ain't gonna like this. There are a group of women out there that use this whole feminine goddess thing, this mother goddess shit, because they're really just a bunch of man-hating females. And I say that because they've been in horrible relationships and they've been damaged by men. So they get on this man-hating bashing shit. But what they do is they hide behind this mother goddess bullshit. So I'm glad you bring that up. Because you bring that up, it reminds me of that. I'm not saying that's what you were alluding to, but I got to address that. I've addressed this before in videos going back years. There are packs of women out there, and I've met many of them over the years, unfortunately, where they're just they're just pure fucking man haters. One, I gotta keep it real. Most of them ain't getting no dick. I'm just gonna keep it real. I gotta come at you 100%. Most of them just need their back straightened out, and they wouldn't be talking like that. That's one. Two, they usually come from scarred ass relationships. And because of all that trauma and being scarred, either they had daddy issues, came out of horrible relationships, bam. Then it's everything is the females this, and men are all fucked up, and men are this, and men are that. No, stop it. Okay? Just be real with yourself. You are a scarred female via the male species, but don't take that out on everybody. I'm in agreement to things with a certain degree, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of man-bashing, man-hating females out there. And all they do is, their whole agenda is portraying or trying to project their man-bashing hate on other women. And again, usually they don't have a man. I'm just keeping it real. Usually they ain't getting their back straightened out on the regular, because that on the regular would eliminate a lot of that. And they're telling other people how to run their relationships. And first of all, you ain't got a man. You can't tell me shit. You understand? And they usually have a scarred background or a past. I'm not saying all. So if some of you listening to this or listen to it later, upload it, don't get all hot in the mind and get all agitated. I'm not saying this applies to everybody, but you know who it applies to. And I'm sure we've met some of these people. Okay? Or met some of these females. It exists. So yeah, that's why I'm not promoting this, because this is not, let's now start bashing all men. As I said before, you got fucked up men and you got fucked up women. Let's keep it real. It works both ways. There's both sides to this. But that comment just kind of sparked that. I just thought I'd address that. So if you're one of them man haters or man bashers because your life has gotten destroyed from bad relationships from men, pick it out on those men. Don't pick it out on the whole species of man, because not all men are like that. So I got to stick up for the men on this one. Okay? And like I said, a good back straightening cures all that. And most of them ain't getting that on the regular. Trust me. You wouldn't be like that if you were getting a good back straightening. Trust me when I tell you. Okay? So let's keep it real. All right, what else we got? I've tried to take a couple more. Hold on, this thing's totally skipped on me. Give me a second. I gotta find my spot. That shit I don't know where that shit went to, but hold on. Let me back up. I totally lost my spot. Bear with me. All right, here we go. I think I found where I left off. Yes, okay, this is where I left. This good comment by Lapis Bastet, Intuitive Vibrations. Yes, you definitely need a balance between your sacred feminine and sacred masculine, most definitely. That's what Lucifer and Lilith represent on the Klipothic. The divine masculine and the divine feminine, or as I like to call the demonic masculine and the demonic feminine. You need that harmony / balance of both of those energies. Okay? One can't exist without the other. That's the reality. Kite Mama. Okay, that's to another person. Believe that. Yes, yeah, I know you sent that comment. Yoga can help and assist with muscle contractions or postures or meditative positions. That's a good point. Kite Mama question: why is chaos associated with melon? Well, there's a couple of things you can go back, right? When you go back into dark matter, right? I like to go back to Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum's book, Dark Light Consciousness. And then I want to refer back to something that, and may he rest in power, Dr. Sabi used to teach about carbon, right? Well, that dark matter or that dark light consciousness, remember that consciousness, and I like to, again, Dr. Edward Bynum so elegantly, and it's one of my favorite books. He talks about that neuromelanin, right? That has its root on the stem of your brain, right? Which is he refers to it as the pathways and roadways to consciousness. When neuromelanin is activated, we know the neuromelanin is everything that's comprised internally, that coats every organ and every fact of your nervous system. That is the conductor that connects you to all avenues and roadways spiritually to consciousness, okay? But that's found in that neuromelanin or that dark light consciousness or dark matter or carbon, as Dr. Sabi described, is found in the darkness or the chaos. That's why on some spiritual paths they associate chaos with melanin, and there's truth to that, and I'm in agreement with that. I like to refer to it as dark light consciousness, and again, I've had Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum on the show several times. If you have not read his book, and that's an area of study you're interested in, much more, the book is fucking amazing. It's phenomenal. It's the best way I could describe it. Get that book, Dark Light Consciousness by Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum. Even though I know it's funny, I know some people don't, because they don't explain it right. And it's not that it's just exclusively associated with melanin, but there is a connection there. And I'm trying to give more of a scientific explanation. Now, there is a comical, like as you're saying, and as you're commenting, yes, some people can get very comical with it, and they get just ridiculous with it. So I'm just trying to give a more of a scientific explanation. So hopefully that helps. But it can be comical. I do agree with you. Mystic Moons. There needs to be balance, like yin and yang, light and dark. The term feminist has been taken out of context and turned into some mumbo jumbo. Who was a feminist to stand for equality for? I agree, and that's why I was talking about what I was talking about. Desandra Willing, what's going on? Good to see you here. I haven't heard from you in a minute. Desandra, do you know any energies that work with thunder / lightning and necromancy with a connection to, Baron Samdi, possibly? Well, obviously, as far as a connection to Baron Samdi, but deities, let's back up. First, deities that work with thunder and lightning, obviously Shango comes to mind. One of his symbols is connected to that. It goes further when you get into Palo, right? Some of the Palo Mayombe spirits. Not sure what reason you're asking the question. Now, necromancy, there's a lot. There's a lot of that connected with the spirits of the dead. You got Kafu, you got Papa Legua, the bridge to the gap. A lot of the voodoo deities, a lot of them in voodoo are connected to Baron Samedi. You just got to pull a lot of them. There's a book called The Haitian Voodoo Workbook. I would suggest you get that book. It'll give you a lot of answers and make a lot of those connections for the sake of time. But there's a lot. All right. But good to see you here, Desandra. Chandra, my bad. Blade Star says, funny how the dark masculine and dark feminine never seem to try and subjugate each other. Instead, they are the destruction that come together to pave the way for creation. And that's what that story is talking about, the fresh and the salt water, merging together to become one. This is the shit that I'm talking about. It's trying to give you an inner understanding of what's going on here, all right? Harmony 9. Man, I keep trying to get to that series, but I'm so fucking busy. I got a keyed up program ready to go. I know they've had a bunch of episodes out already. Yes, I have done classes on the Necronomicon. I've done private classes on them. I don't think I've done an exclusive YouTube video on it. There's a lot of shit over the years scattered on it. Couldn't even recall where. But if you scan through the videos, you might catch. But yeah, I have done classes on it, and I'm sure there'll be more moving forward with it. So yeah, look out for that. All right, so you finally leaving there, Mr. Moon. It's 3 a.m. I don't blame you. That's late. Michael Tellinger, yeah, I couldn't think of the name earlier. VL's Corner. VL, I pulled up your music earlier, man. It seems like the song "The Ritual" is not on there, man. I don't know if you took something off the SoundCloud. I'm not sure if you're still here, but I don't know if something was going on with that. Maybe you can hit me up on that. All right. What else we got? Yeah, another good book, Harmony 9, just put in the chat. Maskim Ho by Michael W. Ford. That is another book. Couldn't remember. So thanks for putting that in. What else we got? Okay, Vision TG waiting to get a webcam. Okay. Well, when you get one, just contact me. So there's a good question by Blade of Astareth. Question: do you feel the concept of dissolution and remanifestation in the womb of Tiamat is a necessary process along the journey of alignment within the draconian current? I do. And it's not, that process doesn't just happen with Tiamat. That happens with a lot of the draconian gods and goddesses. I mean, in essence, that really is the purpose of the mission. That's the purpose of the journey. Okay, because we want to dissolve or use the process of, and that's an alchemical or alchemy term. We want to dissolve or rid ourselves of those things that are preventing us to remanifest and become the divine beings that we have the capability and are destined to be. I think the work itself is all centered around that in some shape, form, or fashion. So most definitely, I agree with that. And I think that's what my journey and path has been about from day one. But again, I don't think it's just limited to with the Grimoire of Tiamat. I think that filters into a lot of the other paths that we work with through the draconian current. But yes, I definitely agree with that. Then Blade of Astar says, and do you feel that such alignment is necessary, crucible to face to progress? Yeah, well, I just kind of answered that. Yes, I do, 100%. And again, based on my experience, for sure. I think that should be one of the reasons, and again, that you want to be on this path. That should be one of the reasons why you're here. Because one, by dissolution or the process of dissolution, you're saying you are committed to address all aspects of yourself and fix the ones that are fucked up. Because until you do, you can't remanifest, as we say, Kepera on this path, and come to the realization of who and what you really are and be that which you are truly destined to be. Without doing that, you can't. So to me, it's 100% necessity. Yeah, Duma puts out another good book I forgot too by Joshua Free, the Anunnaki Bible. Check that out. Yep. What else we got? Okay, so yeah, Luis Flores says there must be a balance for service to self and service to others. Vision TG says I was kind of stuck on some work about getting the glimpses of the void. It was hard to conceptualize. I know it's not actually seeing it, but like a sense of mentally you take. It is mentally, because we use that term looking through. When you're looking through the eye of Leviathan, then you truly understand what the void is. Right? When you see the great reptilian or eye of the dragon, we call that the eye of Leviathan. And like you said, it's not just talking literally visually, which, yeah, but it's talking more from a mental aspect. You're looking through the third eye, right? So when one is looking through the eye of Leviathan, it's funny that comes up because that's what my whole mentorship program is centered around. Because it's called the Red Magus Mentorship Program. And as you go through the Red Magus Mentorship Program, depending on when you get to a certain point, you then have the option at some point of being fully initiated into what we call the Order of the Red Dragon. That's when the initiate has done a certain level of work to now they're prepared to be submerged in that, looking through the eye of Leviathan. Another good book to understand that, I've used that book several times on here, the book Apophis by Michael Kelly. If you're interested in understanding that concept more, that's a highly recommended book. I would recommend a lot of his books, but that's a classic. That's one of his classics. And he considers himself a draconian magician. He specializes in the draconian path, so I'll definitely take a look at that. What else we got? Shout out to Brother Jack. Good to see you here, brother. Damn, this thing skipped on me again. All right, I'm just going to stay where I'm at. I'm going to finish a few more here. Apologize. Let this thing skip. Lewis Flores says, imagination is a powerful tool. My imagine. Yes, to an extent you are, because remember the word imagination has root in what English word? Image, right? When your imagination is active or you're tapped into it, you're tapping into the images that your subconscious mind creates via your imagination. Your imagination is also linked to your subjective or subconscious understanding, spiritually. So yes, to an extent, there's truth to that. Because your imagination and where you create things is through your subjective consciousness and how you perceive it. So yes, there is, to a certain extent, that is true, right? What else we got? Okay, Spirit Driven says, I've had contact with extraterrestrials on 3 occasions, but they didn't want to take me. Okay. Well, could be many reasons for that. I don't want to speculate, though. What else we got? Yeah, there is an agenda out there, and that's why you got to be careful when you talk about that. Spirit Driven, I'm not trying to laugh because I don't know if you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not. If you actually had that experience, I don't know if you're just trying to be funny, but maybe you're not. So I don't mean to laugh or be disrespectful, but I just saw one of your comments. One wanted to spoon me, the other just wanted me to see it. I'm going to take that as you try. I hope you try. All right, let me not assume, but I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh, but that's kind of funny. But I'm not trying to, if you had that experience, I'm not trying to trivialize it, okay? But that's, all right, let me move on. Let me just move on. Rabbi in the Mill, Cyclomancy and Psychassia, have you read these? What progress did you make? Yes, Cyclomancy, and listen, there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, it's such a hard book to get. It's not. All you got to do is go on the Scribe app. It's free on Scribe. I know there's been people over the years trying to sell that shit or front like, I got some rare copy of it. I'll send you a PDF file. Anybody can get Cyclomancy. Cyclomancy is almost like working with meme sorcery. It's almost it's mind magic. It's the power of mind suggestion. Really, what it is, it's the highest form of manipulating your subconscious mind. I think we all work with cyclomancy to some degree on this path. I've used some of the techniques in there. I've had some success with it. Yeah, I mean, it's effective if you apply yourself, but I think I've kind of evolved onto some other things. I mean, yes, you could always go back to it and use it, as a primer, if that's something, see fit. But yeah, I mean, I've used it. I'm very familiar with it. Now, Psychastra, not too much. Read it briefly. I'll be honest with you. Have not really utilized or any information in that book, but Cyclomancy, yes. Again, that's an occult classic. But again, for the last 10, 15 years, people act like it's the hardest book to get. It's not. All you got to do, if you have the Scribed app, it's free. So I just want to put that out there. If you got Scribed, SCRIBD, it's a reading app. Just Google Cyclomancy. It'll come right back up. It'll come right up for free. Rabbi in the Mill says, I merge with my breath twice. It only happens when I smoke weed and in deep meditation. Any techniques to induce this state sober? Yes, we use it. We call it clepothic breathing, where we reverse. You could read about these in some of the books, but I'd be careful to others listening when you do it. It's basically when you're inhaling, you're practicing deep breathing. But when you're inhaling, you are visualizing and seeing and feeling that you're exhaling, and vice versa. When you exhale, you're visualizing that you're inhaling. You actually tap into it, and they actually merge and become one, which can induce a very transcendental or intoxicating state without the use of any type of or weed or herbs or psychedelics. Yes, it can be done. And I always talk about, a lot of people talk about activating the DMT molecule and, things of that through psychedelics or other stimulants. But, we also should have the ability to do that without. I mean, I always pose the question, if you can't activate that DMT molecule or that state without the help of intoxicants or hallucinogens, then what does that say for the individual's actual power? Just something to look at. So you should be able to do it both ways. And again, it's not a knock on people that use hallucinogens or intoxicants. All I'm saying is that shouldn't be the only way you get to that state. But yes, the clepothic breathing, you can find that in a lot of draconian books. I believe you can find it in the draconian ritual book. I believe Michael Kelly talks about it and scattered out through some of his work. So it's out there. I practice that technique. For those who might never have or it's new, it can feel like you're suffocating at first when you do it. You can feel like panic and anxiety set in because you feel like you're breathing. It's a suffocating feeling until you discipline the practice. Because when you're merging that as one, by doing it, you're reversing the process. So it can feel a little out of whack at first, a little bit odd, or kind of I won't use the word frightening, but it can raise a little bit of anxiety is the best word I could describe. But yes. Yeah, hold on, this thing skipped again, my bad. Shit. All right, I'm gonna pick up here. True that, Brother Beatty, have you heard of the Primal Craft Current? No, I haven't. The first three books are Queen of Hell, The Red King, and The Scorpion God, which is called the Trident Trilogy. No, but I will look into that. I have not. Not familiar with it. So I'm gonna, now that you bring it to my attention, I will look into it. And if I'm correct, the Trident Witchcraft is Hecate, Lucifer, and Belial. I'm gonna look into that. What else we got? Lewis Flores says, who do you think Lucifer is then? That's who is Lucifer not, is more of the question. First of all, when you ask a question like that, whether it's Lucifer or any deity, the person needs to establish who they think Lucifer is first. Because if I go into a long rhetoric and babble, and then it's not in line with your perspective of what Lucifer is, and then you're going to follow it up and say, well, this is who Lucifer is. We first need to establish who you think Lucifer is first. And then I'll tell you who Lucifer is not. Okay, because there's different perspectives on that. First of all, it's an archetype. There's many masks of Lucifer. So I'll just give you the simple explanation. No, Lucifer is not looked at as one specific being because he has many different masks and manifestations, such as Mephistopheles, such as Melek Taus, such as Samael, such as Satan, and the list goes on and on. That's just some of his many masks. He has other masks as the Dark Initiator. He has a vampiric manifestation through his vampiric gnosis, through draconian alchemy. There's many different masks of the adversary. So it depends on, first of all, your path, your understanding, and your spiritual practice. There are some people who think Lucifer, like monotheistic people in religion, believe that there's this one specific being. So no, I don't look at it like that. Lucifer has many different manifestations. Even when you go back to Ile-Ife in Nigeria as Legba, the original two-horned devil. It's another mask or path of the adversary. So it just depends on your understanding. So you got to be careful when you ask a question like that. You first need to establish who do you think Lucifer is? Because usually when a person asks a question like that, they've already got their own understanding in their mind. And sometimes, and I'm not saying that's what you're looking to hear, but sometimes they're looking to hear what their concept is. And when they don't hear it, then they want to say, well, no, such and such. So I just need to put that out there. And that applies to anything or anybody. When you ask a question like that, it's very vague. You need to be a little bit more trying to get at, is what I'm saying. Because obviously you're trying to get at something. You don't ask a question like that if there's not a point that you're trying to get at. That's what I'm trying to get at. All right. And that's a good point, Katana Mama. Me, that's what I'm saying. I'll tell you what it is and what it's not. Liz Mary Marietta says there's a yoga position called the goddess pose, and you stand with your arms up just like the trident. That's true. And I forgot about that when I was talking about the trident pose earlier. That's correct. Joe Gardner says, so if you stay like a tuning fork, you can't find harmony in any way, only because you bring the harmony to you. That's correct. That is correct. What else we got? I tend to notice people only, hold on, what does that say? I tend to notice people only ever start clamoring for balance when, there's a good point here, when chaos comes to devour them. At times it seems like people only pay lip service to the darkness just to feign alignment. I want to address that because you're so right, all right? See, we don't just do work on this path when shit goes wrong. See, and you're right. Sometimes people only want to address it when shit is running amok. We're constantly at work on this path consistently. So you should never stop working. Even if you're at a moment in your life where things appear to be going smooth. I always use this analogy. Look at it if you own a car. I don't care if even if it's the most high-tech, luxurious car, it still needs maintenance, correct? You still need to do the oil changes. It still needs to get a tune-up. You still need to replace certain components when they need to be replaced. Long story short, you need to do the maintenance. What some people tend to do is they tend to let their foot off the pedal when things are going smooth, and they don't do the maintenance work on their spirituality. You should still be working rituals, addressing areas of your life, even when things are going smooth, or do things to keep that harmony as fluctuating and going as you can. Okay? You are right. There are some people who will only tap in, like you said, when they start clamoring for it, or chaos comes for them and it tends to overwhelm them. And then all of a sudden it's about balance. Well, you'll find the difference between those people and what we do. We're prepared when the chaos starts to come or present itself in areas of our life. We see it, we recognize it, we tackle it, and we master and overcome it. So it doesn't become as much of an issue with us because we're prepared for it. Why? Because we're always doing the work to see it. And so when it comes, it doesn't devour us because we're locked into the vibration. We're in sync. Whereas people who think because they've got a period or a moment where things are going smooth and they let their guard down, then when shit smacks them upside the head when they're not looking, then all of a sudden it creates problems. But man, listen, you hit that shit on the head. I see that shit all the time. Never fails. So yeah, you don't want to become one of those. Shit. All right, where were they? All right. I'm not sure. Again, Lewis Flores, E.A. Enki, who is Lucifer? I'm not sure what that means. I already addressed the who is Lucifer. What else we got here? Just heard Ichigo Uzumaki says, just heard a rapper say Earth is flat and round at the same. Yeah, listen, don't get me started on that flat and round shit. But that shit is all over the place. Ishara Nocturnal says, this is what I meant. Some women turn divine feminine into manhood. Yeah, I've seen this shit for the last 10 to 15 years. I know some of them personally, and it's disturbing. And again, I got to keep it real. Majority of it is because, one, they ain't got a man. Two, they ain't getting fucked on the regular, and they ain't getting their back straight now. I'm telling you, that's all it is. And then they're turning other women into man haters because their life is miserable. They ain't got a man. Then they want to get into other women's head and turn them on men. It's like a fucking domino effect. Listen, I've seen it. It's real. Unfortunately. And again, it's not all women. It's a small categorized group of females. And as I said before, you got fucked up men and fucked up women. So it's a reality. It's fact. All right, what else we got? Oh, that's you. Okay, Desandra. I didn't know that was your YouTube, DD Wimley. I see you in there. Okay. Lewis Flores, reincarnation and karma. Let's talk about the reincarnation thing real quick first. I've actually done videos on this. I do believe reincarnation is real, but it's a very can become a very intense subject because, yeah, there's a lot of books out there on it. Yeah, there's a lot of perspectives of spirituality on it. But I think an individual through their spiritual work comes to the realization of their past reincarnations. So then it becomes more of a personal aspect. So all I can say is this on that, from my own personal experience and my path and my work with it. I do know I've been here many times before, but I'm not going to sit here and go onto a rant that I was this and I was that and try to get people to co-sign and be convinced of it, because that would be pointless. That has been something confirmed to me through my spiritual work. I do believe all of us have been here before, and I do believe reincarnation is real. But again, I think the individual has to raise themselves up to their own realization of that. Now, karma, I don't spook karma out. People make this shit more complicated than this. All karma is cause and effect. What's cause and effect? By the choice. I talked about this earlier on this video in the beginning. All that is by the choices and the decisions you make. The decision or the choice and the effect of that decision is that's all karma is cause and effect. Don't believe karma is some spooky energy that you did something and something's going to come back around and get you. That's religion. That's not what karma is. I do think karma is sometimes overanalyzed and spooked out and made very religious. So people have different definitions of that. But that's our definition on this path. Karma is cause and effect. That's it. All right. Yeah, Joe Gardner's Dark Light Consciousness by Dr. Edward Bruce Bynums. If you don't have that book, I recommend it. Yeah, man, I'm telling you, I know it might sound funny, but some of them need that back straightened out, man. They need to get that back cracked. You know, and I'm not talking about from a chiropractor. Let's keep it real. All right, most people that are sexually depraved are usually miserable, male and female. They usually just, yeah, you get my point. All right, what else we got? All right, what else we got? Yes, I have worked with Aramon Current before. And there's few books, Become a Living God Press. You can find, there's a real good anthology of Aramon on there by a multitude of, it's put together. It's an anthology because it's a bunch of group of authors. Some I'm not too keen on, some I am, but that's irrelevant. But that would be a book I would recommend. There's a lot of good rituals in that book too. BecomeALivingGod.com. You can find it on there. I think you could actually find it on Amazon. I'm almost certain it's on Amazon. I actually have the digital version of it. Yeah, it is on Amazon. You can't find it on Amazon. Just actually type that in. It comes right up, the anthology of Aramon. What else we got? All right, so again, oh shit, spirit driven. I wasn't trying to. That's why I said I wanted to make sure I was treading the right way. I wasn't trying to. I'm not doubting you didn't have that experience, and I wasn't trying. It was just funny because of your meme and the way you wrote it. So by all means, I wasn't downplaying that experience. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. But I get it. Yeah, the Patreon is in the description box. Vision TG. I would encourage all you guys to check it out. We're actually doing a class on there tomorrow for tiers 2, 3, and 2 to 5 or 3 to 5. But there's 5 different tier levels. It's patreon.com/Beniti. I'll put it in the chat. Again, it's in the description box of the video. But I'm going to put it in the chat. I would encourage, if you guys haven't checked it out, check it out. It's patreon.com/BANITI. I put it right there in the description box so you guys can see it. We work, Lewis Flores, we use the Emerald Tablets of Tahuti. Actually, in my mentorship program, it's one of the beginning foundational works we use. We use alchemy as a deep form of shadow work. We use the 7 operations of alchemy. We actually use the Emerald Tablet text, the conversation with Tahuti or Hermes. There's a lot of information in there. So we do use or work with the Emerald Tablets of Tahuti as a form. We use it as alchemy on this path. And I would recommend everybody. One good translation and breakdown of that, the one that I've always put out there for years, the last several years, is Alchemy for Personal Transformation, The Emerald Tablets of Tahuti by Dennis William Huck, H-A-U-C-K. Dennis, D-E-N-N-I-S, William as it's spelled, and Huck, H-A-U-C-K. All right. Kitai Mama says, Ahriman is my favorite deific mask to follow. Yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with any of those Eastern systems of magic, whether it's Persia, whether it's anywhere in the Far East, Melik Taus, very similar energy, the Peacock Angel, Chaldean or Babylonian magic, all them have, I noticed when I work with them, they have a different energy to them. Well, let me say what I mean by different. Like even when you're working with Melik Taus with the Yazidis, I find it very similar, whether it's Ahriman or any of those other. It just, you can differentiate that mask as opposed to working with maybe some of the more traditional or more known, well-worked with ones, but very powerful, can be very intense. I find a Zazzle energy very similar or connected to it. And we work with the Zazzle as a dark mystic. Ahriman is a very similar type of vibrational energy, in my opinion. I know everybody's going to have their own, obviously, experience with them, but I find a lot of those, the best way I can describe all of those energies, Ahriman, et cetera, is there's a very mystical energy. And I find there's a lot of hidden knowledge uncovered in that work. You uncover a lot of aspects of your subconscious mind, your hidden self. You gain a lot of awareness of things you need, one, to look at, analyze, and address. And there's a lot of hidden sacred knowledge that comes in them rituals. And I notice a lot of them personify, like Ahriman, a lot of them personify through the elements in the rituals, smoke, the fire. Even with Azazel, you can scry with him with all four elements, earth, water, fire, air. So there's a lot of mystical aspects to all of those masks. But yes, they're very powerful. What else we got? Oh, shit. Motherfudger. Okay, here we go. Damn thing be skipping like crazy there. All right, I found it. Yeah, I will truth added. I'm going to check out the Primal Craft and the Trident Trilogy. That sounds very interesting. Mark Allen Smith, thank you for the information. I will check it out. I'm not familiar with it at all, but it does sound something worth checking into based on what you described. Ishara Nocturnus, yes, that is one aspect. You use Satolas. That is one aspect or mask of the Prince of Darkness, yes. And that's what I'm saying. Everybody's going to have their own perspective on it based on their spiritual path and their journey. So, yes, that's one aspect. Yeah, you gotta address it in its totality, Andrew. I agree. Those for us. What else we got? Do me a favor. Some of you guys shoot me these books. Just as a reminder, so I don't forget. Shoot me an email, man. So here's another one that Harmony 9 saying, Werewolf Magic, Authentic, Practical, Lycanthropy by Denny Sargent. It just came out this month, and the book is deep. My email is in the description box. I'm gonna put it in the chat. I want both of you guys, just please, so I don't forget, because there's so much I got going on. Truth Addict and Harmony 9. If you can email me the titles of those authors and books so I don't forget, I will definitely pick those up and look at them and maybe do a class on them. I just put my email in there. It's in the description box of the video. But just shoot me an email and send me the link, or I appreciate it. This way I don't forget. All right, people, we are at the end. I'm going to stop here. I got shit to do. It's probably stayed on here a little bit longer. I planned 2 hours. We are approaching the 3-hour mark. I am done. Again, for those on the Patreon page, I'll see you guys tomorrow in class, 3 o'clock. We'll be talking about the 4 anti-worlds and states of non-existence. So those that are Patreon members, I'll see you tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Check out the Patreon page if you need to reach me for a reading, a spiritual consultation. Shoot me an email. Don't forget, we got the class on the 3rd on the ancient Egyptian path of the vampire. We'll be talking in depth about the vampire current. We'll be going in depth in that on October 3rd, 3 to 6:30. You can sign up for that class. So you can send a PayPal payment for $55. That's the cost of the class. Using that same canoom19@gmail.com email address, and please include your email and your name in the payment so the link to the class comes to the right address. Other than that, you know where to reach me. You got the email. I appreciate everybody's support. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will talk soon. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, all right? Infernal blessings to all. Why, did you check in on the game?